you're going to demand, but not demean. And what I mean by that is as a teacher, as a coach, when you're on the football field, there's certain things that we want to get done, and certain ways of doing those things as we go on. And I think you got to demand that from the young men or women that you're working with. But I think also there's a way to do it, a certain way to do it. And I'm not going to do it by demeaning someone or putting somebody down. I think there's a better way of doing it and being positive and showing them that you care. And I think you got to do that to grow. Right? We want to grow in what? Our relationships, because that's what it's all about. No matter what field you're in, it's all about the relationships. To me, some of the greatest things that have happened in my career are the relationships that I've had with my players, with the coaches that I've had a chance to work with. I think that's what it's all about, because they need to know that you care. That's what they want to know first and foremost. And you could put up all the offenses, defensive plays, and strategies. That doesn't mean anything. I think it's all about the relationships. So that's where a huge part of my style is going to go through. And then off of that, when you build those relationships, we all know relationships are built upon trust. Trust is a huge word that we'll use in the Buffalo Bills organization from top down. Doesn't matter what part of the organization you're in, there's that trust and knowing that I can count on you and you can count on me. And when you have that trust, it's so strong that you can do some great things with it. And then last and not least is we're going to have fun. Right? That's what it's all about. That's why we do what we do. We love the game. We love playing it. We love coaching it. We love teaching it. And how you're going to do that? You want to have fun, right? And you put all that time and work in, especially your practice. You get to play once a week. You want to know that you're having fun out there on the field with your guys and girls that you're working with, and that's what it's all about. This next slide, for philosophy-wise, is I'm sure you guys have heard this, playoff caliber, something that if you were to ever to get down here to Buffalo and have a chance to see it, you'd see it around our building. And what that means is it's the standard of excellence that we strive to do everything by. That's our philosophy. That's what the organization is built on. And that excellence that we strive to do everything by, it's in everything that we do. The way we go to meetings, the way we prepare for practice, the way we practice on the practice field, the way we study the game, the interaction, how we go into the weight room and work there on our fitness and our strength. Everything that we're trying to do is be playoff caliber, right? And but if you're wondering why playoff caliber, at the end of the day, when we start the season, the goal is we want to play and get to the playoffs, which is going to give us a chance ultimately to get to our ultimate goal, right? And that's our purpose. And our purpose is to hold that trophy come February at the end of the day. That's what we're all striving to do, right? We're built upon, at the end of the year, there's going to be one team that's happy and hoisting that Lombardi trophy. And that's what we're trying to get done here at Buffalo. And we keep working towards that goal every day. Your purpose, wherever you're coaching at, obviously could be winning your conference championship, winning the Pop Warner League, winning national championship in college, whatever it is. Yeah, I think you need to define that with your team, and then making sure that they understand that purpose, and it's got to mean something to them and be important to the whole organization, because we're all working together to get to that piece. So how do we do it? 1-11, 11-1. Do your job. It's just a fancy way of saying do your job, right? Those doors are to our locker room, and you would see 1-11. right? There's 11 people on the field at once, right? And everyone's striving to do their 1/11th, which is going to get us, right, to where we want to be. If you strive for that, do your job. And that's everyone in the organization, right? Everybody on the team. Everybody's striving to do their job at the best and highest ability that they can. And when you get that working together, you're going to have a great opportunities to do some great things. I know one of the topics that when I was working on it, and I that was listed on the things to talk about was culture building. The first one you see on the screen, the love for one another. I think love's obviously a strong word. I think you got to love, right, the people that you're with and interacting with on a daily basis as you're building your culture, right? And I've been fortunate to be here from the beginning when Coach McDermott got here back in 2017 to now going into our 5th year. And that goes for not only us, our staff, our players, the trainers, strengths, you name it, everybody in our organization, right? And the other thing is the love for one another. Hey, I'm going to do everything I can, right? Because I know that the person next to me is counting on me. And if you can get to that, I think it's so strong that it's going to take you places you've never been. And I've seen it since I've been here, and it's only getting stronger. So I think that love and the love for what you're doing, right? We all put a lot of time into this not easy profession. We spend a lot of time, sometimes even time away from our families, where we're spending more time with the people we're coaching. So I think you got to love what you're doing, because the players love playing, and as coaches, we love coaching. So the 2 most important things we say, right, are people, right? The people in your organization, the people on your staff, the people on your team, right? And then the ball, right? Because we all know the ball is so important as we go around. I'll talk a little bit of football coming up here, but that ball is the most precious thing. I don't care if you're on offense, defense, special teams, that ball is vital to our success. And the players need to know that and explain to them the different situations and how that ball is important to us. I think you got to be humble and hungry, right? Humble and hungry. And having players like that and a staff like that all around. The trust, there's that word again, trust, okay, which is just vital in building your culture. Player-driven leadership. Obviously, when you start out, a lot of the culture and the leadership is coming from the top down, from the head coach to all the people that have their hands on the players. But eventually, that now needs to turn into player-driven leadership. And we work on that with our guys, trying to get them that, hey, this thing, that's when you become great, right? We can say it a million times. We can do all the things that we want to get done, but eventually the players need to take that over. And I think that is something that we're striving for and we've gotten better at. We've had a lot of players now here that have been here 4 or 5 years with us coming up. So that helps as you're building a team. Okay. Team building events, something that we do, it could be a movie night, it could be family night, dinner, different things. I know we're very fortunate. Our ownership, the Pagula family, is unbelievable, where they share with us some great stuff. All the different holidays. They have Halloween night. I mean, there's kids trick-or-treating all around the building, holiday parties, you name it. Even Erie County Fairgrounds, they've rented out and have all our families come to that during the season and be able to go on all the rides and all those things. Those things are important as you're building your team. A staff retreat, that's just us coaches going out and doing something together, whether it be golfing, whether it be going out, fishing, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of different ideas. I'm sure you guys have done some where making sure that your staff's together and understanding the goals and the vision that the head coach has for our organization. And then again, I hit those organizational events down there at the bottom on our holiday party and county fair and the different things that we talked about. Expectations, right? What is expected of you? I think there's expectations that you have for your players, right? Loyalty, that word is so strong and was ingrained in me coming out of college when I went on my first interview. And I think it's one of the strongest words out there. You got to be loyal, and it's a two-way street. But loyalty is so strong that, loyalty to the organization, the head coach, to me is just something that is expected of you. Attention in meetings, walkthroughs, etc. Whatever you may have going on with your team, but that's expected of our players. The effort, right? An absolute must. It's not something that you should have to coach. We're fortunate now, going into our 5th year, our players understand the tempo and the different things that we're doing, that there's never a question in effort, and there shouldn't be ever with your team. Learning the defense, right? Putting the time in, not only in meetings, but on your own. They should be studying the game on their own when they're back home, or not involved in school functions. We expect them, like, no food, headphones, all the electronics and the distractions, hats in meetings. We ask them to dress in Bill's attire, right? That means the stuff that we give them, our equipment managers give to the guys. We want them to be wearing something that's Bill's attire, right? And then do your job, which we hit before, and the trust, right? Which is absolute must with our guys. Expectations from coaches, right? What you can expect from coach. Our number one job, in my opinion, is put your players in position to make plays. As you guys are working with your players and having a feel and getting a good understanding of what they can do well, that's the position that you want to put them in so that they can make plays, right? We don't want to put him in a position where, he's really, that's not one of his strengths, but we're going to ask him to go do it anyway. Then no, right? That's not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is to put him in position to make plays. That's our number one job. Video, we're going to help them with video, right? Today's technology, you have so many different tools now that you can get it to them instantly, right? Compared to when I played, it was like if you didn't go to the facility, you had no chance of seeing anything. Now you can get it to them in a blink of an eye, snap of a finger. Tips and reminders, we're always going to give them stuff daily to help them, whatever's going in that day, right? On-field drill work, classroom teaching, right? They're going to, right? They can expect from us is trust, right? The communication part of it, you guys got to communicate, and it's a two-way communication. It's not just a one-way, hey, this is the way we're doing it, and you don't have any say, and that's it, and I'm going to pound my fist. No, we don't do it that way. There's a two-way communication, player, coach. Sometimes we're listening to them. I'll ask a player, hey, what do you think of this? We're telling them one thing, and this is how we think we want to do it. But you know what? You're actually the guy or the girl that's doing it on the field, right? Give me your input. What do you think? They might have see it a different way. And you know what? Hey, that makes sense. And look, you know what? We're all going to do it that way. Let's try it that way, and if it works, then great. But there's got to be an open communication, and it goes both ways, player, coach, to help the team. And then consistency from the coach. You got to be consistent in all that you do, right? You're telling the player to be on time, 5 minutes, you need to be on time. Don't be walking in, to the meeting room, as it's 5 o'clock and you're showing up at 4:59 and 58 seconds. No, you want to be consistent in the way you talk, communicate, coach, drill work, all those things so that the player knows what to expect from you. I got this slide here on how we practice, right? Which I think is important. You'll see that first bullet point now, full speed chase, no los, right? And I'll talk about los in a sec. No collisions, right? A lot of times in today's day and age, we're not tackling at practice. We don't tackle at practice. So we want to make sure that there's no collisions on the field, right? Everything that we're doing will be full speed. We got different tempos that we'll use, but we want to make sure when we're practicing against each other, we don't want to be collisioning or getting anyone nicked up or hurt when we don't need to do that, because we need everyone to be available come Sunday for game day. You know, ball in the air, interception or score, right? And from a defensive perspective, when the ball is in the air, we're trying to work on taking the football away, which is huge in the outcomes of football games. And it's always going to, if you have more than they do, there's a good high percentage that you're going to win. And then when we do take the ball away, we want to score. If it's on the ground, right, they fumble it, scoop and score, all right? Always training ourselves for players to scoop the football and score, right? So that when it happens in a game, it's not like, oh my goodness. No, it's something we're trained to do all the time. If the ball's on the ground, on an incomplete, we're going to scoop that ball. And then we'll sprint it back to the line of scrimmage. So it could be 20 yards down the field on an incomplete pass. We still want to scoop the ball, right? And get them into great habits. And then we'll run it back to the line of scrimmage. If we have a ball carry on a run play running, right? We always looking to work a strip or a punch out, right? We want to be able to do that. So again, you're creating habits, stack good habits, right? Another way to, train your players to take away the football from the defensive side. And on the flip side, as an offensive coach, you're practicing on all these things, right? To prevent them on ball security. And then we never want to grab jerseys when guys are running full speed, because there's a risk of injury, a risk of a muscle pull. Could be something serious or something that keeps somebody out for a week or two. So we just don't want to do that. We want to make sure that players know that when we start practicing together, like we have just recently here during OTAs. All right. And then staying away from the quarterback, and that's highlighted, right? In gold, no ifs, ands, or buts. Stay away from the quarterback. All right. We never want to get anywhere in that area where he might be throwing and following through, or somebody helmet. Now his hand hits the helmet, and now we got a problem, right? So when in doubt, just stay away from the quarterback. And the biggest culprits of that will be the D-line, but they know once they come through, it could be anyone coming through on a blitz. Just, if you're free, peel away. I'll leave this up for a second, but you guys can see here what's a loaf, right? Not sprinting to the football, okay? Talking now from the defensive perspective of coaching. A change of speed, right? All of a sudden you're watching tape and you see one of your players running, and all of a sudden he picks up speed because, oh no, the ball's out. He should be sprinting to the ball, so we should see what? No change of speed. If you get knocked on the ground, right, you should not stay on the ground. If you stay on the ground, that's a loaf. A rush defender, somebody who's rushing the quarterback, and the ball gets thrown. If you don't turn and go to the ball, that's a loaf, right? Great way. We always talk to them about coming out of the stack, right? You're rushing. Ball's thrown, I should be sticking my foot in the ground and turning to where that ball is, right? And hoping that somebody turns that ball back to them, and it could be a big hit where the ball could come out. If you get passed up by a player, right? That's a loaf. So if you're running to the ball, but you're really not going fast, all of a sudden we see a player come flying by you that's same speed, and that's not a good sign. Turning down a hit, obviously we don't want to ever see that, where you have an opportunity to make a play, but you don't go in on it, and then not finishing aggressively at the end of the play. Those are how we categorize what's a loaf. I'll leave this up here, and I'm just gonna hit this quick because I know we're going on time here. But our organization for a walkthrough, I figured I'd put this up here that might help you guys out that are when you have a walkthrough with your own players, right? This is how we kind of break things up. Our D line is really now the O line. So if the first team defense is going through a period of a walkthrough, well, our backup D line, they're going to be the O line, right? So it says no beanies. We wear those colored hats. Our linebackers, right? So the backups, whoever's not in at that time, they'll be the fullback or the tight end. And the fullbacks, we have a blue hat on, blue beanie, I should say. And then the tight ends are the yellow beanies, right? The defensive backs that aren't in, they're going to be the running backs and the wide receivers. Our running backs wear green, wide receivers wear red. Why do we do this? So that they can see, instead of everyone just coming out in the same jersey and same helmet, we need to be able to identify, like we do in the game, what the personnel is, okay? So that gives us a great opportunity. If we see a green and a blue, we know we got a tailback and a fullback. So there's two backs in the game. If I see one tight end, that means it's 21 personnel. That's how we call personnel. First number is backs, second number is tight ends. That means if there's 21, that means we know there's two receivers in the game, and there'll be two red beanies on those guys, right? And then on the bottom is how we set the huddle. Our nose tackle, he sets the huddle to get everybody in there. Our will linebacker gives down and distance, which is critical, so players know the situation. Our safeties will call out the personnel, which we just talked about. And then our middle linebacker gives the call. And that's how we organize that walkthrough. And then my last slide here is win the day, right? And everything we do when we break on defense, it's about winning that day, right? The most important thing when we hit the field is to win the day. I'm not worried about what happened yesterday or looking forward to what's coming tomorrow or the game on Sunday. It's about how am I going to win that day and help our team get better. I'm going to stop my share here, Aaron.
Okay. Coach, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. So we do have a few questions. Sure. Before I jump into those, last night we were talking in our first night of the Mega Clinic around how we were focused on non-contact football and how those transferable skills transfer to tackle. And it's interesting to hear you talk about from a professional level and the things about building culture and the things that you do at your level and how all those things transfer so well to the community and to, young athletes, that the things that you do are the things that we're actively preaching on a day-to-day basis with our kids and with, our coaches. I guess the first question that I have is, the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis to build this culture, to build what you're trying to envision for your program. How does that trickle down to the players and the coaches, at the younger levels? And how are you basically making a model for people to see, hey, if they do it with the Buffalo Bills, yeah, of course we should be doing it at the younger levels?
I think, what we're doing here, compared to what we did, at Princeton, it's all about developing the player. And coaches also trying to develop themselves, right, to be at the highest level that they can be. And that's what we're trying as coaches, to give our players the best chance to be successful. And the things that we talked about earlier, the trust, building the relationships, because at the end of the day, that trust, the relationships are so critical in what we do. And, before scheme, right, as coaches, we're all guilty of it. right? We want to what? We're going to run this play. We're going to run, we're going to run 4 verticals versus 3D. We're going to run this blitz versus, and all that's great. But at the end of the day, it's about building the young men and women that you're working with, teaching them the fundamentals, mastering the fundamentals, because this game is about what? It's about getting lined up, blocking, tackling, catching, throwing. Those things aren't changing in football, right? We all got to be able to do them. And I think, when you're building that culture of the team building events that you can do, whether it's on the field or off the field, I think those are the types of things that I think will help your team grow and grow fast. And as coaches, we need to be the role models for that. And then also understanding our role, like when you say role, what your role is, my 111th, right? And that they understand that, because that's what it's all about. I'm going to do my job. And if I do my job at what? Playoff caliber, right? To the best that I could be, good things are going to happen.
So you talked a lot about community and trust, and in your position group specifically, and with the players that you interact with on a day-to-day basis, how do you as an individual build that trust with your players? And I know it might be different at the professional level, and you got guys with families or guys just coming right out of college. Mm-hmm. So what's the most important thing about building that trust on a one-on-one basis?
I think, like now we're going through, we got rookies that just came in, and you're getting to know them, right? How am I going to get to know that young man, that young woman that I'm dealing with, right? I want to get to know them. That's the first and foremost, I think, important thing. And we're all crunched in time, right? We all got, some of us may have other jobs. Some of us might be, whatever it is, we're limited in time. So how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to do that when I'm going to go have breakfast with them. And I know with COVID right now going on, that's been tough with all the restrictions that we have. But there's going to be, when everything's cleared up, hey, how am I going to spend some time with that person when it's not just in the meeting room? Because when that meeting comes, you only got so much time to get in all the things you need to get in and get practice ready and all that. So I might, hey, I'm going to go eat with these guys, right? Grab a bite. And there's not going to be any football talk. I'm not worried about, over 3, hey, versus this play. No, this is going to be more about, hey, let's just eat. I want to get to know you more, right? And I'm going to let them know me, right? Because you're building that relationship. You're trying to build that trust with that person. When families, we always have our families around or at practice, and they're going to get a chance to meet my family. I want them. I'll have them over for dinner, right? Have a team meal. Those are the types of things I think where you start to build those relationships, to build their trust. Also, when you go into the football part of it, is as you're teaching them, right? We talked about being a teacher, right? My job is to put that person in the best position to make plays. If you're doing that with them and helping them learn the playbook, and they're going out there and having success and understanding things, they're going to be like, hey, you know what? Man, Aaron knows his stuff. He told me this, this, and this. Man, when I went on the field, hey, it was this, this, and this, right? So no different than any other job. If someone's helping you become better at what you do, right, you're going to listen to them.
So we actually have 2 more questions, and one ties, I think, really well into what you were just talking about. And the question comes from Joel is, with the culture that you've been building with, the coaching staff and the program, the organization, when you have new rookies that come in and maybe have come from a different culture or, something similar, but, you're trying to basically bring them into what you're expecting of them. What is the best way to sell it? Is it the coaches? Is it the veteran players on the program? What are the things that, and especially, we have a lot of programs where you get new kids maybe that haven't been in the sport before and are trying to understand football. What is the best sell pitch for those guys to buy into the culture?
player-driven leadership. Your veterans, whether it's college, high school, middle school, those are the people that are going to be able to show those new players that are in your program how it's done. Right now, our rookies are watching our vets, in specific, like in our room, we have all of our guys back. So they come in and they're seeing, a Tre'Davious White, a Micah Hyde, guys that have been playing at a high level, and their mannerisms, how they prepare, how they come to the meeting, and they got a book, they got a highlighter, they got the iPad out, they got all that stuff going on. These are guys that have been playing, some of them 8, 9 years, and they're asking questions. And so if I'm a young player coming in and seeing that, besides what coach is telling me and how to do it, but all the things that we talked about, now I see the veteran players are doing it. Well, that's where it's, right? It's no different. Coaches can tell them all the time, but when they see the guys or girls doing it that they're playing with, and ones that they respect and like have been watching on TV or back on Friday night, Friday nights when they were younger playing on JV, now they're on varsity and they see those players, man, that's going to sell it right there, in my opinion.
I think that's a great point. Sometimes as coaches, we can be broken records, right? And that peer leadership that we have is something that's indispensable, I think. So our last question for you, Coach, comes from Anthony, and this kind of goes to the coaches in the room that are looking to, what their next level could be to be able to move forward. So do you have any advice for coaches on what they need to be able to do to be able to either move on to university ranks or the professional ranks, and what is important for them in their career aspirations to be able to develop as a coach?
Yeah, I think, I read this many times and I saw it this morning. So it's funny that you just asked me that, but I think you have to bloom where you're planted. Right? And what I mean by that is where you are, you have got to do the best job that you possibly can. And like I said earlier, I started in high school football when I got out of college coaching. The things that you do and how you prepare and how you work and developing relationships, right? Here comes that word again, relationships, trust. The people you work with. A lot of people that I worked with when I was younger have gone on. One of my best friends, Paul Appolice, is the head coach in Canada, right? Me and him were roommates, our first college job at Western Connecticut State. So there's people that are going to branch out. You're going to have a chance to work with, I was fortunate enough to be part of the Bill Walsh Diversity, Minority Coaches Internship. That's where I met Sean McDermott when he was an assistant at the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Ron Rivera was on that staff. Steve Spagnuolo, Andy Reid, all these people. And little did I know, me and Sean developed a relationship, and I don't know how many years, probably 2003 that was. So 14 years later, Sean McDermott becomes the head coach of the Buffalo Bills and calls me. And next thing I know, I'm in Buffalo. So I think going back to that original question is blooming where you are, strive, put the time in. Nothing happens without putting the time in. You got to work. I really believe that. You got to get your hands dirty. I line the field, laundry, all that stuff. We've all been there, and you got to just keep going. And if your goal is to move up to another level, you need to get out and meet some people at that level. If you're a high school coach, you want to coach in college, I'm sure you're running into those people coming in recruiting. Try to develop a relationship. Go to their practices. Call, ask, can I come to practice? Can I spend some time with you to learn? I have specific questions on whether it's coaching techniques, defensive stuff, offensive, whatever it is. Go out and meet those people. And then when you do, now you got to build a relationship and keep developing that relationship to where all of a sudden now your network starts growing, and that when that network grows and they see you having success, right, wherever you are, people are like, the end of the day too is I always tell the players, I said, when we turn on, if I don't have any video, like actual football video, but when we turn on that tape, that's your resume. And I would tell my players, hey, when we turn on the tape, that's my resume too. You guys playing when they turn on the tape. And they say, that's a well-coached unit right there. And I can tell you this, I've heard this for years and years. Sit in a meeting, and I've asked it, and I've heard other coaches ask, hey, who's coaching those guys? And those guys are good. Who coaches that defense? Who coaches those DBs? Who coaches that quarterback? Right? And all of a sudden, good things are going to come by. If you do well where you're at, good things are going to happen. And you also got to work at it on the other side of developing your game and your relationships and meeting people and keep growing, because you never stop learning. I trust me, I didn't have a computer when I was in college, and I can use one, I think, pretty good, but I'm always learning. There's something new. I mean, this Zoom stuff, if someone would have told me in 94 that I'd be having a meeting with hundreds of coaches in Canada on a Zoom, I'd be like, what are you talking about?
Well, it's funny. We actually had Coach Lapalisse on last night, and he was talking with us on non-con. So, when you talk about those relationships and stuff, football's not a big world, right? Like the community that we build, it's funny. The next time I'll have to tell Coach Lapalisse that you dropped his name on here, because that's, you're right. The connections that we build and the work that we put in the places that we are at, and the relationships that we build are essential. And Coach, thank you so much for the time that you've given us tonight. We really appreciate it, and I'm so excited to be able to see what you guys do this season, because you guys are right in our backyard, and anything Buffalo does, we all see. So we're super excited. Good luck in the season, and we hope that we cross paths in the future. So thank you so much, Coach.
Absolutely. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks to everybody for having me on. Hopefully someday everything will get back here to normal. We can get you guys down here, maybe even for a practice, or obviously we'd love to see you at a game. And if there's ever anything we can do, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll do the best that we can.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach. And stay safe and enjoy the I know it's a long weekend for you. So enjoy your long weekend.
Thanks. You too. Take care.
Yeah. Okay, so we are going to keep moving with our schedule. That was fantastic from Coach Salgado. Lots of great points. One of the big things that we're really focusing on Ontario right now is building culture, community, relationships, and I think Coach hit it kind of right on the nose with all of that stuff, and it really hits home exactly what we're trying to do with the community, with our young kids, whether it's flag or tackle or university kids or all the way up to the CFL. A great Lapalisse connection there. That's exciting. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Coach JT Tsui is a personal success coach, and he's going to talk today about winning the effortless way. JT is a driven, passionate, and service-oriented coaching professional with over 20 plus years of leadership and management experience in athletics, education, and business. JT delivers consistently strong results by creating equitable, diverse, and inclusive environments so all team members can be in a position to succeed. I know it's not in my write-up, but JT was also a really, really successful high school coach, and he has been an invaluable resource for me as I've come into the role as executive director of Ontario football. And his work is exciting. I'm really excited for everybody to be able to listen to him and to be able to get an awesome message about winning the right way. JT, nice to have you.
Thank you, Aaron. Thanks for inviting me on. Happy Friday to everyone. Really appreciate everyone for just being here with me in this space. And hey, the one thing that I will say, this last year has taught all of us, the power of technology. I know technology gets a bad rap, but you know what? It's pretty awesome when you get all these ambitious, driven, amazing coaches, leaders, and mentors just in one space on a Friday night. So yeah, thanks, Aaron, for inviting me on, and thank you, all of you, for being here with me.
No problem. So I'm going to give you the floor. If anybody has questions as JT goes through his presentation, please feel free to put them in the comments, and we'll make sure that we go through them when you're done. JT, floor is yours.
Yeah, no, definitely. So before I get into it, just share with you, just to give you some context. So before this, I was out for a run, and then I get a message from Aaron asking me if if I can be ready to go a few minutes earlier than expected. So again, I kind of felt like it back to university times where coach calls you, ready to go, and you strap on the helmet, you're ready to go. So I am here, as Aaron was saying, prior to the work I'm doing now, I was a high school teacher for 15 years. My last stop, I was the head coach at AB Lucas in London, and I coached for 20 years. And in this process, I've really become fascinated with how do you maximize your success on and off the field. And for me, this concept of winning the effortless way, I really got fascinated with it. So before we start, I want to ask you a question. And the question I have for you is, what does winning look like to you? And there's no right or wrong answer, but I'm curious what ideas, what words, what images came up to mind. For you, is winning a number on a scoreboard? Is winning about city championships? Is winning about graduating a certain number of players? Is winning, just playing, having your players play all out? And what I would really encourage you to think about is get really clear on what winning means to you. And for me, what I've learned through this whole process is that winning on the football field is great. I am ambitious, I'm driven, I like to get after it. I love winning. But for me, it was more about, how do I use football as a tool to create and build the best young men possible so that they can win in every area of their life, right? Whether it was in their health, relationships, school, as a boyfriend, as a son, in all aspects of life. So that's where a lot of this came from. And one of the things I've learned over these years of coaching is that when you think great, you feel great. When you feel great, you play great, right? So again, when you think great, you feel great. When you feel great, you play great. And one of the simple ideas that I've really come to understand in the last couple of years is that success in the game of life, whether on the football field or off the football field, is pretty simple. It's 95% mindset, 5% strategy. So what I want to share with you tonight is what I like to call the 3 C's to create effective leaders on and off the field so that you, your coaches, your players, and everyone involved in your football program can win the effortless way. And what I want to share with you is these are lessons that are not just theory. These are ones that I have applied in my own coaching practice and have seen the results firsthand. So the first C I wanted to share with you was the idea of this: clarity. So my question to you is, what do you want for your football team? What do you want for your football players? Like, what do you want? What do you really want? And what I would have you sort of think back to, reflect on is your idea of what winning means to you. And as you play around with that idea, remember, there's no right or wrong answers, right? Winning is specific to you, right? Winning looks different for you. It may look different for your coaches. It may look different for your players. But really get clear on what that is for you and what you really want that to look like. And what I would ask you to think about is, what is your goal? Like next football season, in the fall, what is your goal? And what I would share with you is this idea. The purpose of a goal is to grow, right? And we as human beings, right, it goes beyond football. We are designed to grow. It's part of our DNA. A goal is not to get. So when we focus on growth, the byproduct is, right, the city championships, the wins, right? Graduating X number of players, graduating players to play CIS football, NCAA football, and so on and so on. But the true purpose of a goal is to grow, is to become a better version of ourselves each day. And when you really take a look at goals, they come back to this idea of three types of goals. And the first type of goal is a goal you've already achieved. So let's say you've already had an undefeated season. Well, that you've already done that. So that's a A-type goal. A B-type goal is something that you think you can achieve, right? Like if everything works out, then this is what comes back. So if these players kind of come back, then we'll have a chance to win. But I'm talking about like a true goal, like a C-type goal. And a C-type goal is something that energizes you, like it puts that fire in your belly. It is something that excites you. Again, that energy, that enthusiasm. But it should also be something that scares you a bit. And when it has to scare you because it's somewhere you've never gone before. And those are the three types of goals. So I'd really encourage you to think about what is like a C-type goal for you, your football program, right? And you can even apply that to each of your individual players. What's their C-type goal? and your coaches, what's their C-type goal, and really start to play around with these ideas. And as I mentioned earlier, the one part that just has to be is it just has to be meaningful to you. Like you have to just really want it, right? If it's something you truly want, you'll do what's necessary to get there, right? It's that old saying, and that, you know, when there's a will, there's a way, right? It goes back to that idea. And I'll just share with you a quick story just to highlight how this is applied. My last year, 2018 at AB Lucas, we had a goal to bring it home. And bring it home was a motto that I created that off season. And it signified in London, the Public League trophy was named after Clark Samways. And Clark Samways was a longtime coach at the University of Western Ontario, right? He was the father of one of our coaches at AB Lucas. Our weight room at AB Lucas was named after Clark Samways. So it had a special meaning for our players, for our football program. And Clark also happened to be my position coach in university. So there was a lot of emotional investment in that idea. And that became our motto for the season, was everything related back to bring it home. And it was something that idea, those three words were something that our players knew. They knew what our motto was for that season. They knew what the mantra was, and they could say it with verbatim. And those three simple words were the difference maker for us in our pursuit of the Public League trophy in 2018. And I'll share a little bit more about it. So figure out, again, what does winning mean to you? What is a clear goal for you? And how can you create one that is really clear? And again, for this can relate to you, this can relate to your coaches, this can relate to each of your individual players as well. Position groups, it applies to everyone. The second C, so the first one was clarity around goals. The second C to creating effective leaders on and off the field is consistency. As I mentioned, our motto in 2018 was to bring it home, right? To bring home the Clark Samways trophy. Now, the really cool part was the first time I presented that motto, that mantra, was 2 weeks after the end of our 2017 season. Just to give you some context, 2 weeks prior, we had been beat pretty handily by the South Lions, like 52-7. So there was nothing in our current results that ever said that bringing it home was like, when you get beat by 45 points, it takes some faith and some confidence to say that that's your goal. But that idea, I first shared that idea, those three simple words, with our players, with our coaches in our first off-season meeting at the end of November. And I communicated it to our coaches, to our players. And an interesting thing happened was they started at first, it was just a saying, but then as the off-season went on, they started to buy into that idea more. And the interesting thing happens is your physical body is an instrument of your mind, right? Like what's going on between your two ears. And the only way to truly change your mind, to truly start to create, belief in an idea, is through repetition. So to a degree, much like this program here on my phone, I had to help build a new mental model for our players. I had to slowly help them build the belief that they could bring it home. So every time we got in together for an off-season workout during our twice weekly, it was bring it home. Every time we got into a meeting, it was bring it home. When we got into spring camp, it was bring it home. It was bring it home, bring it home, bring it home. And one of the things was I encouraged our coaches to do it, because I had no interest in micromanaging each of our coaches, but I did ask that our coaches relay that message, that it was about bringing it home. And they could coach their own style, right? And as long as they were getting the job done, and they were getting done, as long as it was consistent with us putting us in a position to be prepared to bring it home, I was good with it. So the coaches then became another way for me to multiply. So the repetition grew stronger. So we had 4 other coaches. They were telling players, bring it home, bring it home, bring it home. Our veteran leaders started to do it as well. So again, empowered our veteran leaders to be consistent with the message. And they started to do it too. So essentially what I did was, because I started to learn about consistency with the message, the idea of bring it home, I empowered our coaches, our veteran leaders to also preach it, because then it became more than just me preaching this idea. And what happened was you could see the belief, you could see the buy-in start to happen. And that's a big thing, right? As a leader of your program, you cast the vision for the big overarching goal, right? You're the CEO, you cast the vision, but getting as much buy-in as quickly as you can, empowering your coaches and your athletes to get to preach a consistent message is just going to make the goal happen faster. It's going to get accelerated. And a fun thing that we did, well, our players might not have thought so that time, was for that 2018 season, we started practice every day after stretch warm with a 4-minute fitness blast. And sometimes it was football related, sometimes it was just like a fun fitness challenge. But one of our coaches, right, I empowered him to say, this is going to be our bring it home program. And we are going to do this 4-minute fitness blast program, because in the fourth quarter, when other teams are gassed and the guy across you is winded, this is where we're going to, again, step on the gas pedal and we're going to do it. So all of a sudden, bring it home became source of a sense of pride, right? It just became part of who we are, because we knew when times got tough, we consistently pushed ourselves harder in practice in games, and it was just full pedal to the metal. So that's, again, the power of consistency, right? So get the buy-in. So it's about clarity, consistency, and the third C to developing effective leaders on and off the field is this idea around confidence. And confidence is something that, again, there's a lot of great football minds in here. The one thing that I'm sure we can all see is that there have been athletes we've been around who have all the physical tools, but, just maybe I don't know, just something isn't clicking, right? They shy away during, in that big play, or it seems like they never reach their potential. But then you also, on the flip side, may have that athlete that maybe doesn't have all the measurables, but there's something about them that when the lights are on, you just know that athlete's going to outperform. They're going to outshine. And this is something that has always fascinated me, is what is that X factor? like, what is it that allows some athletes to really maximize their potential and to truly succeed, and what happens to others that don't have that? And what I've come to learn is this idea of you cannot outperform your self-image. So what I would relate that to is this idea. If a athlete thinks he's just a backup, that is where his self-image is set, that he will more often than not just perform as a backup. If an athlete feels that, okay, he's like a starter, he's an all-star, he'll perform up to that standard. And this is something that of where it's so powerful for us as coaches, as leaders and mentors, where so much of an athlete's ability to perform, to truly be an effective leader on and off the field, really comes down to the ability to really help them develop true confidence, right? And without a doubt, we are in a day and age where it's not like it was back in the day where, you know, you could just scream and yell at all kinds of players and they're just going to do it. From my experience, right, of coaching young men, whether it was in junior football, senior, whether it's with any of the pro clients that I work with, they need to feel seen and heard. Like you need to invest, and they need to feel like you actually care about them, right? And again, I know that if you're here, that's something that you value. So it's really about helping our athletes create a new mental model, right? To truly help them see themselves as that strong, powerful, confident young person that you see them as. Like they have to see it, they have to feel it. And one of the best things for this to happen is about helping our athletes, our coaches, bring order to their mind. There's that great saying, right, where this paralysis by analysis, right? You know, that you think back to that athlete where, you know, it's like his feet just get stuck, right? It's because he's overthinking. But it's really just that ability to give each of our athletes like one simple task. Like, and this is where I learned that 2013 had a great opportunity to coach with the London Junior Mustangs. And our DC at the time was Matt Robichaud, who played in the CFL for 9 years. And he had a simple saying to all of our athletes on defense. He said, "Do your job." And what I learned from Coach Robichaud that year was just give the athletes one task to do, right? Focus on one task, do your job. And when they do that job, if all 12 guys do their job on one given play, that's all you have to think about, right? Just do your job. And when we can teach that, what that does is when the athletes feel the ability to do their job, they get confident. And that's that power of that daily focus action. It's do your job, right? Like, and when that happens and that becomes the message, they start to create some success for themselves because they are successful in that action that you have them do. And as they do that, their level of preparation increases, right? Because they're doing everything that's in their control. And when they feel like their preparation, if they've done everything they can to be prepared, then their confidence goes up. And when their confidence is high, that is where they have that bulletproof attitude, where that bulletproof attitude is, it doesn't matter who is standing across from me one-on-one. I know I've prepared. I'm going to do my job to the best of my ability, and I'm going to be successful. I'm going to win. And when you start to do that, right, and we can teach our athletes to sort of drown out the noise, that is where, again, the winning becomes effortless. So winning doesn't have to be hard. Winning, you can win the effortless way. But we first need to focus on creating those effective leaders on and off the field. And we create those effective leaders on and off the field by getting very clear on what our goal of the program is. You know, again, you can dive deep into what are our individual goals. That was one thing I'd love to do. I loved finding out what the individual goals of each of the athletes were, because you can use that as kind of like that carrot dangling on a stick. Find out what drives them. So have a clear goal. Second, consistent, right? Consistently, right? Repeat the goal. You can create a mantra. We as football coaches, we love creating mantras, right? It's easy for kids. They like sayings, right? They love acronyms, right? Have that consistent idea that just reminds the athletes about, and coaches, what is the goal, right? Get consistent, get buy-in from your coaches, your athletes to share the message. The more buy-in you get, the faster the goal is going to happen. And the last idea of how to create effective leaders is the idea of really empowering athletes to develop a sense of confidence. And this isn't positive thinking. This isn't fake it till you make it. That doesn't work. That, as we all know, that gets exposed pretty quickly when things get real in games. But it's really that idea of putting our athletes, right, people first. And when you build that, when you apply those three on a consistent basis, that's how you win the effortless way. So if any of you have any questions, if you want to have a conversation about how to start, what you can do to start integrating some of these ideas so you can start winning the effortless way in your program, feel free. Again, I can put my email in the chat section there. Email me. Always love having conversations. If there's anything that I can do to help or be of service to you to share these ideas, I'm always open to having a conversation.
JT, that was awesome. Thank you so much. So we do have some questions, and I like to start off by, so let's go back to that season with Lucas. And was there a time throughout that season where you were ever unsure if that goal was attainable? Was there ever any self-doubt, or was there any moment where maybe the team felt self-doubt throughout the season?
You know, to be truthful with you, Aaron, I never doubted once. I was curious to see what the result would be that first game versus South. I still know the date, September 27th, because remember, my the fifth year guys had lost to that South team 4 years in a row, every year in the playoffs, right? So they were 0-8 against them. So I felt like that. We played, when did we play? Probably the second week of the season. And I was just curious to see how we would come out. And the first drive, we came out and we took the ball. We went like 8 plays and scored. Like just took the ball and shoved it down their throat. The one I went, okay, now we're going to see what we're made out of. And first play, stuff. And then the second one, their great running back got outside and our corner came up and filled and flipped him over. And there was just this different confidence about them that I was like, it just felt different. So I never did doubt. I wish I could say I did, and I would tell you if I did, but there was no part that I did. I just knew that we were so battle tested and so prepared, and they were so focused that it was going to happen.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, like that South team at that point was loaded, right? Like just an unbelievable group of talent, and they, for the past basically 3 years at that point, had just been a juggernaut. And so, you know, the result of that season was impressive. And for anyone who doesn't know the London high school landscape, this is a competitive landscape. So, you know, what was accomplished that season is unbelievable. The next question I guess I have is, you know, you touched on the player that we need to build confidence up to, but I'm sure we've all had the player where confidence maybe isn't necessarily the issue, or maybe it is, and it's not really a true understanding of who that person is as an individual. Can you talk about maybe the other way, you know, maybe that player who in a different circumstance hasn't bought into that goal or culture because maybe at that point they think they're bigger than the team, or that they're different than the rest of the group?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question, Aaron. I'll be the first to say, folks, hey, I've coached for 20 plus years. I have not always done things the right way. So this is a lot of school hard knocks, right? Like a lot of, you know, you really gotta, a lot of practice. For me, what I've really learned is people don't resist change. They resist being changed. And what I mean by that is I can stomp all the time and go, you should care about, it's bigger than you. It's about the team. But if an athlete or coach doesn't believe that, you're not going to convince them otherwise. If anything, the more you tell them they're wrong, they're just going to dig their heels in, right? Think of your life. If you've had a boss or teacher, or maybe your significant other is telling you got to do this, right? You resist it. So what I really learned is it's the power of questions, right? Coming from a place of power versus force. Force is trying to get people to just accept your ideas. Coming from a place of power really forces you to find out what makes that person tick. So like questions like, hey, you know, I know you love football, you know, what's your goal with football? Hey, you know what? You might find out that athlete has desires to go to university. Oh, okay. Well, hey, you know, and then maybe it's that opens the door to have a conversation with, hey, I was talking to coach so-and-so, and one of the things he looks for is he loves team first guys. So he loves guys that buy in, like coach, what if he decides to move you? And I find just really starting to get to know your player, really invest in getting to know them, finding out what they want by asking great questions. You can really get at the core, the root of what truly drives them, and then use that as a carrot. So if you have a kid that wants to play CIS ball, but maybe isn't the biggest team first guy, use that drive. Like if he wants to play CIS ball, use that CIS drive, put them in a position to win, and then and give him opportunities to see that when you'll put him in a position to be successful, and when he's successful, it'll make the team successful. And when that's how we get more eyeballs, right? That's how we get more CIS coaches watching our games when we're winning as a team. So that would be, so I would say, ask questions, find out what makes them tick.
That's a great answer. And I'll use this reason why. So, we're in the pandemic and we're at home a lot. So we watch a lot of TV now, right? So the recently past couple, must have been a month ago, I started watching Ted Lasso a lot. And I was like, well, I'm not a soccer guy, but he's a football guy, right? Coaching soccer. So it was a fun concept. And there's this great scene where he, this guy underestimates him. And basically he tells this whole story about how, he was underestimated his whole life. And it was because people didn't ask questions about him and didn't want to take the time to get to know who he was. And, it's a great way to put it, is that, once we get to know our players a little bit more and get to have an understanding of what make them tick, that's how we make change. And I think that is a great way to put it. So we do have two more questions. So the first one is, you talked about the goals and creating leaders. And, sometimes, yes, we want to build leaders, but there are certain individuals that have, some innate leadership characteristics. And, as coaches, we have to be able to figure out who our leaders are. So what is it that you're looking for in individuals to be able to say, hey, you are what we need in a leader to drive that culture and goal message that we have?
That's a great question. So I still remember the days in university where rookies packed the shed, right? You didn't go in for the end of practice until you were done. For me, I've been very fortunate to be around some great coaches, right? And have some great mentors at the high school level, London Junior Mustangs, and just at the university level. And one of my expectations as a leader is I will be the first to do anything. I will never ask my players to do anything that I'm not. I am at school Saturday and Sunday washing their uniforms. I will pick up garbage off there. I will do that. But I've always told his players, I learned this from one of my mentors, right? For a long time, Todd McKay, who's done a great job, who is the head coach at Banting in London. And he says, hey, membership has its privileges. So I would tell him, I will go through a wall for you. But my expectation is that if you're a leader, if you're a fifth year guy, if you're a fourth year guy, my expectations for you are even higher. So I put actually more on our most veteran leaders and our stars, because, hey, with great privilege comes great responsibility. So I make that very clear that that's the expectation.
So in terms of, when we setting goals is an absolute must in everything we do, whether it's our regular day-to-day lives or our businesses or, obviously in our coaching, but sometimes, we don't always meet those goals. That is a reality of life. And in one of the probably the best aspects about football is that we're not always going to succeed, and learning from those failures are almost as important as the success. But with those failures comes the feeling of failure, right? And how do we allow our players to have the tools or create the tools to deal with the adversity of failing to meet the goal that we're really trying to strive to hit?
Yeah, great question. And I think in this day and age, that's what we need to do, right? Is help our athletes build those social, emotional learning skills, right? The ability to battle adversity, to be resilient. So I learned this lesson. So I forget what it was, that 2018 season, we were up in our first game, I think 28-0. And it was like the end of the first half. And then we had a bit of a blip in just a brain fart. And then Laurier scored a touchdown, like a 60-yard bomb on us. And I remember coming over, and again, our routine was we always sit right in the V after. And I would look at our players, and I could see the one player who made a mistake. He knew it. And his chin was on his chest. So the first thing I would always say to players here is, the first one's on me. I didn't give you enough repetition and practice so that you could see, so you could feel confident and act and do your job. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a solution. Did they make a great play that we couldn't stop, or did we make a mistake? we made a mistake. Okay. Do we know what the solution is? Most of the time they'd say yes. Sometimes we draw it up. I said, the second one's on you. Are we good? Yeah. And you know what? Very often that season, we didn't give up many points, right? Because I think they just felt like I wasn't going to, like, no one, like if we make a mistake in life, right? Think back to, you make a mistake in your personal life. You don't want your loved ones telling you what a awful job you did. Like, that's the last thing you need.
Yeah, I think that's, especially in football, we can never be perfect, although we are always striving for perfection. And, being able to identify where we made the mistake and being able to create the knowledge to be able to rectify that mistake. Football is an interesting sport because you're going to see that same thing at some point, whether it's that game or whether it's another game. And I love the way that you put it, is that, we as coaches are responsible for helping the players know that they're not alone in those decisions, and that, we are there to be able to guide them through that process. So I do have one last question.
Yeah,
JT.
no worries.
I mean, this is a really good one, and I just want to make sure that, we cover it. So we talk so much about the physical attributes of the sport and how important it is for guys to get in the weight room or, be physically skilled. But we're always talking also about how much of a mental game football is. So I know this is one of your main, points that you talk on, and being able to be mentally prepared and mentally skilled. How crucial is it that us as coaches put in the time to build the mental tools for the athletes as well as their physical tool set?
Yeah. The mental tools are everything, right? It doesn't matter how big, strong, fast you are. If when come crunch time, right? It's 4th and 1, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, whatever you want to call it, where the pressure consumes them. So it's really that idea of, it doesn't matter who you are. You can never outperform your self-image. Think of your self-image as like a thermometer for your life. And if you need any more, right? Like, what is the story that's going on in our players' heads? Like, do they truly believe that they can be successful? And it goes beyond positive thinking. This isn't positive thinking. Like that's an over glorification. When things hit the fan, and they will, we know that. Not that we wouldn't expect that it's going to hit the fan, but it will. We all know that, right? We don't score every play. Sometimes we get scored on, but we really have to really be aware of where our players' minds go when things don't go their way. And I'm a firm believer that I will be the first one to jump in front of a bullet for them and take it, because I'm strong enough to do it. My job is to put them in a position to win.
That's fantastic, JT. I want to just make sure that I say thank you so much to being able to talk with us and share both your experience and your expertise in the area, in learning how to win, the easy way. Or yeah. I just, all of this resonates so much. And I think the stuff that you talked about was the exact same stuff that Coach Salgado was talking about previously to you, and that building culture and building winning teams is really about, the little things and being, all the things that you talked about. So thank you so much, JT. Really appreciate it. And if anyone does want to get a hold of JT, his contact information is in the chat. He is a great resource if you would like to be able to dive more into this and how that can help your program or your coaching. JT's great. He'll get back to you right away. And I don't know, JT, did you want to give any plugs for any of the content that you put out on a regular basis?
Yeah, you know what? I would say that, again, I have lots of different ones. You know what? Just email me. If you have a question, just email me. That's probably the easiest way. And then I can get a better sense of what it is you're actually looking for. And then I can best direct you that way. That's probably the easiest way, Aaron.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, JT.
Thanks, brother.
All right, so we're going to get moving on to the next portion. And so the next portion of our workshop is going to be, talking about the kind of the big elephant in the room, which is return to football and what we are doing as an organization behind the scenes to get back to the game, and what information that we currently have from the Ontario government about return to football. But before I do get into that, I do just want to make sure that I take a little bit of time to thank some people that have put in a lot of work to be able to get this off of the ground. So I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Riddell again for all of the support that they've put into being able to allow us to provide some gifts and some awards to the individuals that are participating in the workshop this weekend. That support is incredibly appreciated. The OUA has been a great partner in being able to get this. We have this phenomenal 2 days planned for Saturday and Sunday with just unbelievable OUA coaches, and that wouldn't have happened without the help of the OUA coach Michael Falds, as well as Coach Ryan Kublik from Carleton, who put in a ton of time to be able to get this off of the ground. So without further ado, I am going to jump into the return to football. As I go through this, please make sure put in your questions similar to how we've been doing. I know there's probably a lot of questions around return to football. I will answer them to the best of my ability with what I have currently at the moment. But let's just dive right into it. Okay, so currently right now, just go through the process of how we take in information from the provincial government. So the government will make an announcement. Generally, we actually don't receive the announcement or the information prior to when the government puts it out to the public, which is always interesting and tough for us as a sport organization to be able to get the information out to you. So we get that information most of the time when you get it. Sometimes we get it before, or we get hints or inclination that we're getting it before. But as a most recent announcement, we knew exactly when you knew. So once that announcement happens, we get the regulation specifically for written notice from the government. Usually I get that from my provincial representative within 72 hours of the announcement. And then we as an organization in the sport community have to interpret whatever is put out by the government and put that onto our model as a sport. One of the misconceptions is that we as an organization actually dictate what the restrictions are. We do not. We will make whatever restrictions are in place from the provincial government, and make it so that our sport can be as open as possible based on those restrictions. The other facet to this that is unique that the Ontario government tells us this all the time. The municipal governments hold a ton of power on how those interpretations are put into place within your municipal regions. So although the Ontario government may put out their general restrictions, that is what we consider the floor. And municipal governments have any leeway to interpret and to increase restrictions or have more restrictions than what the Ontario government places. They will also look at our return to play models and interpret it for the sport. The one piece that we have no control over is how the municipal, whether it's the field allocation or the school boards, interpret how they space out their fields and the allocation. So a lot of the times, even when I go through what is looking on the horizon for a return to football, the big thing is to understand what your municipality has in place. And that will generally be through whoever your connection is, generally when you're booking fields and the allocation of those fields. And that will vary from municipality to municipality. So the last piece is us to communicate to the members. So we do that in a variety of ways, whether it's through our social media, our email blast. If you're not on our email list, please feel free to go to our website, jump on our email list so that you can get the information shared to you as fast as possible. We do have a town hall also scheduled for June 12th, so that hopefully by that point, we're going to have an even clearer picture than what I will present to you tonight. One of the things that we are doing as a sport with the other sport organizations is we are lobbying as a collective with or to the Ontario government. So we have been brought on and been working collectively with these other sports for an outdoor sport coalition. And the reason that we're doing it this way is that we are the most similar in and the most impacted in the next little bit to get back to what we expect of sport. And what we expect is to be able to, in a combination with the clear evidence of outdoor sport and recreation being safe and being able to operate in a safe way. Last spring and fall, we were able to operate with cohorts of 50 with non-contact. We're hoping that over the next few months, that will be even more expanded. And we as a sport collective of outdoor sports are working right now constantly to lobby the government to be able to ensure that we have the pathway moving forward safely and effectively to deliver our sport. So here is the current road to reopen. And I know the past few months we've been talking specifically around, frameworks and colors and red, green, yellow, and orange. All of that has basically been thrown out the window this past week and a bit from the Ontario government. Most of the provincial bodies have gone to a 3-step reopening process, including ourselves in Ontario. The step process is specifically based around targets for vaccines. So step 1, and I think it was announced today that we have actually already met the target for step 1. So 60% of Ontario is having 1 dose of the vaccinations. But in saying that, the Ontario government has put, I'll talk about timelines in a second, a tentative date for this to be January 14th. They have said that even when we hit a target, they have a 21-day kind of lag period where the efficacy of the vaccine increases from that 21 days. So there is a moving scale of timelines based off of the target and this 21-day window that they've put in. So currently what we know about step 1, if it were to take place on the designated date, January 14th, we will be able to have outdoor fitness and recreation and training with 2 meters of distance for 10 people. This will be similar to what was the red framework previously. Step 2 is the one where we are the most excited and reserved about because we have very little information about, to be quite honest. Right now, the target for step 2 is 70% of Ontario adults with 1 dose and 20% with 2 doses. I'm going to quickly move on to the next slide to look at the timelines. But if June 14th is the designated date, that would take us 21 days past to July 5th for step 2. Currently for step 2, based off of the road to reopen from the Ontario government, outdoor sports leagues can be open. But we don't know what that means right now. No sport knows what that means. Currently in the framework, there is a piece in there that says for outdoor gatherings, we can have a maximum of 25, but outdoor gathering limits has never directly correlated exactly with what sports can do. So we are right now in a process where we are probing the government to understand exactly what the outdoor sports restrictions are for all outdoor sports, including football. Our goal is to be able to ensure that we can operate as open as possible, as safely as possible within step 2. Step 3 is basically a increased expansion of the restrictions, allowing indoor sport and recreation, and even more openness to outdoor sport. And if we were to look at that timeline, given the idea that we're on the pace for vaccinations, that we are on the pace to hit both 1, most likely 2, step 3 would then come into place around July 26th. Again, that could be later, that could be earlier, depending on the vaccination rates, and depending on or assuming that the infections stay as low as they are. I think we're right now slightly below what we were pre-lockdown. So the numbers are trending in the right direction. The problem that we have, and that we are working as a sporting community, is to understand exactly how we reopen. And that is currently a big gap that we don't know. And unfortunately, nobody knows. So the work that we are doing with the Game On initiative and with the Outdoor Sport Recreation Collective is to ensure that the models that are happening in BC, Saskatchewan, and Quebec, where outdoor sport competition, contact football is open, is the same restrictions that we here in Ontario are able to utilize. Right now, Saskatchewan and BC, starting this Sunday, I believe for both, are open to contact leagues up to and including between 50 and 100 participants, depending on whether you're in BC or Saskatchewan. And Quebec is moving that same way. So the model that we are following now, the STEP process, which is similar to those other provinces, hopefully is going to provide us the best case example of how we reopen. So there's positivity and there's light at the end of the tunnel, but there's still some hesitation because the Ontario government hasn't been very clear on exactly, what it's going to take for us to get back. But I want to be clear, the goal is football, to return to football. And we are actively working to lobby, to work with our counterparts in the other sports, to work within our internal pathways, whether it's our direct contact to the ministry, or whether it is actively working to find pathways and best practices from the other provinces, specifically in the sport of football, to get our sport back and on the field. I know that this has been a really tough time for our sport, and we have a lot of challenges moving forward to get our sport back to where it was, and hopefully better than where it was. Before I move on to the next, are there any questions about the return to football, or if there's anything that anybody wants addressed? I'll give maybe a second if anybody wants to put in, as I'm pulling up my next presentation, to quickly go over some of the goals that we have coming out of the pandemic. One of the things that we are really focused on right now is providing opportunities or new opportunities for organizations to find ways to be able to get programs up and going as these restrictions start to alleviate. So Gavin has a question. Do we have a max outdoor number for no pads commencing June 14th? So currently right now, if we hit that June 14th, the max number of individuals that we can have within a pod is 10, and that includes your coaches. So here's the caveat. Your municipality will dictate to you what space on a football field can hold 10 people. So if they say a whole football field can only hold one group of 10, that'll be what it is. But some municipalities might say, a 40-yard region of the field would be 10. So currently, that's where we sit for that June 14th date. From the indications that we got from the government today, the number of vaccines have been higher than the rate that they were expecting initially. So that is positive. The other thing that they've done is they have increased have made the dates for the second dose for people who have a first dose. That time frame from when you got your first dose to when you were expecting your second dose has decreased. So more people are going to be getting their second dose sooner rather than later. So although the timelines have that 21-day period between, there is at least a chance that those timelines get moved forward. Now, in saying all of that, what I have learned, at least in the past little bit with interacting with the government restrictions, is anything can change on any given day. So we are going to constantly try to communicate and give updates to the football community as we get more information, and to be able to hopefully guide the conversation as much as we can internally with the government and with the other sports to make sure that we can get what we need to, have as much as we can close to a regular football season in the fall. Who knows what we're going to be able to do for traveling across or within the province or out of province. But that's currently how we are moving forward. So another quick question, how will Ontario football handle vaccinations? Will they be required to participate? So currently we have had no indication from the Ontario government that mandatory vaccinations will be required to have participation. And as the requirements exist right now, especially because of the age framework that our youth or our kids specifically are able or not able to get vaccinations, that has never been a criteria. And for us as an organization, we will base our criteria based on what the government says. If the government says that mandatory vaccination is not a requirement for participating, that will be our mandate. If the government says that we have to say that mandatory vaccination is a requirement, then we have no choice but to make that our requirement. So currently at this juncture, we've had no indication from the government or from the ministry that is a requirement. And throughout this process, even when we had non-contact football or flag football, we haven't had to do that. So that doesn't look like that's on the horizon, at least currently. So. Okay, those were good questions. Before we move on to the next piece, I do want to just give a quick summary of what we as an organization for Ontario football are striving for over the next few months, the next few years, and what we're trying to build as a community here in Ontario. So one of the I probably should have done this at the start, but I want to introduce you to me a little bit as the executive director of Ontario football. I grew up playing football in Ontario. I've coached basically at every level in the province. My past working experience, I was with Football Canada for the past 8 years as the director of sport, working on a variety of different portfolios, basically anything on the football side, whether it's high performance, coaching, every aspect of the sport. And my love and passion for football has always lived in Ontario. And so to get the opportunity to come work for you in Ontario to help grow and develop the sport is an unbelievable honor for me. And one of the things that I hope to bring to this position is to build the sense of community in Ontario for football. What I saw in my time at Football Canada, in some of the other provinces, is a real true sense of community around the sport of football. And I hope that we can cultivate that. We talk culture all the time in football, and building that culture of excellence and transparency and growth and alignment is a really big piece of the puzzle that I hope to bring to the province. And mostly that is going to be done by bringing leaders to the table to be able to provide a voice for people. There is so much great work being done in the province right now that we just want to enhance that and be able to give more people an opportunity to drive football in this province by providing more resources and providing more opportunities. And this mega clinic, we hope, is going to be something that we can do on an annual basis in the future and be able to get people around a table, eventually actually in person, and still have some virtual elements, because access, I think, is a big piece. So I just kind of mentioned it, but the four main pillars, that we've been really focused on the past 3 months for the organization is transparency, creating an open door policy for this organization to get people involved and to be able to understand what we're trying to do and what we want to do for the community, and get people a voice in trying to build that, to really grow the sport. Growth is a really important piece, especially coming out of this pandemic. Finding ways that we can get more people in our sport, females, and creating more non-contact and growing tackle football with small-sided games, and finding more opportunities to just grow the sport that we all love. You wouldn't be here on a Friday evening if you didn't love this sport. Creating the alignment that we've all kind of, hoped for in this province. Like I said, I grew up playing and coaching in this province, and having a streamlined community that we can work together to build is, I think, a big piece of it. And I've heard this a couple of times. We're Ontario. We're the biggest province. We should be the best. But like JT said, and like Coach Salgado said, we have to build a culture of excellence. And I hope that we as an organization can be eventually be the leader in showing what excellence is in everything that we do. And that starts from the top. And I do really believe that. So just a real quick piece. In some of the pieces that we want to focus on, we want to increase accessibility to the sport by growing grassroots, non-contact, the first down program, CFL futures, creating partnerships, focusing on getting young Ontario kids into this sport at an early age. And that starts by providing, more content and resources for organizations. We want to create province-wide inclusion programs for flag league tournaments, increase programming options in all communities, small communities, large communities, the GTA, the North, Sudbury, Thunder Bay, all the way to Windsor. Like, we want to make sure we have football in all the communities that we have. I'm a big proponent of this, that there is a huge interest for female participation in our sport. And, over the past few months, we've really seen that cultivated. We have a couple of really exciting announcements coming over the next little bit around female development in the sport. We want to increase athlete support content, program alignment within the provincial stakeholders. We want local, regional, provincial events for all disciplines. And we want standardized high performance pathways so we can increase accessibility, greater reach, and provide value in our high performance. So it's not just one-off tournaments or kids paying a lot of money to go. The Canada Cup is one of the best experiences there is. And I will stand on the mountaintop and say that all the time, but we need to make it more accessible, and we need to make it, something that people feel value in, and that the community can feel a part of as we move forward. So those are just a couple of things that, we as an organization are really focused on. And, it really kind of goes into the picture of how we really wanted to drive the growth in the province. And we hope that anyone that's on this call, if you have a passion about something, you are really excited about something in the sport, whether it's non-contact or whether it's, driving six-a-side football, or whether it's, getting more coaches involved in the game, reach out. My email's on the website. I'll put it in the contacts. We want as many volunteers participating on our committees, or, just in general, trying to help grow this game. So in saying all of that, it's time to give away a prize, because I think that's a good way to say thank you to everybody for being a part of this. So Daniel is going to queue up our exciting Wheel of Fortune wheel so that we can give away a Speed Flex from Riddell. This is a great prize. I know my guys, when I coach, they love the Speed Flex. It's, one of the top of the line helmets that you can get right now. So here we go. Last night it span for quite a while. Span's not a real word. So here we go. All right, Sean. So Sean, Daniel will be in contact with you and connect you with Andy from Riddell, so you can claim your prize and the helmet. So hopefully that goes to good use in your program, or wherever you want to put that into use. So in saying that, I believe our next presenters are in and ready to go. Don and Murray. If you guys want to turn, there's Murray And there's Don. Perfect. Okay. So super excited to have Don and Murray here to talk to us tonight. A lot of times we have coaches clinics and we always forget about the officials. And I've been told over the past little bit, don't forget about the officials, because I'll get a call and Don and Murray will yell at me. And I don't want that, because I don't want to get flagged sometime in the future when I'm on the field. So first off, I want to introduce both Don and Murray. So Don Carmichael is the current president of the OFOA and is a member of the Durham York Football Official Association. He has been involved in officiating for over 40 years and has worked all levels of football. These include minor, high school, university, and professional, including 25 years of service in the CFL. Murray Drinkwalter is the current vice president of the OFOA, is a member of the Lakeshore Football Officials Association, and is in his 38th year of officiating. He has worked all levels of football up to and including U Sports as a member of the OUA panel. Murray is currently the referee in chief of Lakeshore and is a past president of the Ontario University Football Officials Association. Guys, thank you so much for being here to walk us through all the new rules. I know it seems like it's been forever since we've been on the field, and to really dive into the rules. And I know coaches are probably going to have a ton of questions. So I'll hand the floor over to you and do your thing, guys.
Thanks very much, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks for having us. Okay, Don, take it away, buddy.
Hang on here. Well, good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be part of this clinic. Normally, when Murray and I speak to groups about rules, it's an audience of officials. So this is a refreshing change, albeit perhaps a tougher crowd. The first thing that occurred to me was that not everyone might know where to access rules information. Here are some resources that could be helpful. What we hope to do this evening is provide an overview highlighting the major rule changes that have occurred over the last 2 years. Now, a comprehensive list of changes can be found on the Canada Football website. In the absence of football, a review or at least a refresher seems appropriate. And at the end of the presentation, there will be time for questions. Please use the chat feature to ask your question, and we'll try and answer as many as possible. Each year, the Rules Committee entertains proposals to improve the game. Changes are focused in these 3 areas. Recent modifications, such as the new blocking below the waist rule, would be an example of a safety improvement. After a first down has been made, the clock no longer stops, a timing adjustment aimed at improving game flow. And removing exceptions, such as this year's illegal participation anomaly, help to make the rules more consistent. I need to get my screen to advance. My apologies. Let me just try this a different way. Okay. Clearly, the game is best served when everyone has a common understanding of the rules. To that end, I'd like to invite greater dialogue between our 2 groups. Currently, most of our rules discussions occur on game day and in a hyped environment. It's not the ideal time or venue. What if it became commonplace to see officials at team practices? Clubs could make use of officials for scrimmage situations and use them as a rules resource. It might surprise everyone to know that officials don't get reps except during games. This would be an opportunity to get those reps and some coaching from veteran officials. A benefit or a win-win for both groups. I invite everyone in the audience to consider this and reach out to their local officials association. Sorry, folks, for whatever reason, my screen doesn't want to advance. There we go. Fouls can be classified into 3 groups. Technical or execution type penalties are fouls where coaching and player discipline can make a significant difference. We all want a game with minimal disruptions, and a reduction in these types of penalties is an area to focus on. We don't want a football game to look like the final 2 minutes of an NBA playoff with constant stoppages. Competitive penalties happen. Players will always commit competitive fouls because they're athletes. They compete. Reducing safety fouls is a shared responsibility. Your job is to instruct safe play, and ours is to enforce consequences after the fact. Both are necessary. Remember, the goal is to ensure the safety of the athlete. As was stated earlier, our goal tonight is to provide an overview of the major changes which have occurred over the last 2 years. Let's get started.
Okay, the first one we're going to deal with, everyone, is when a player goes to a knee. Anytime a player goes to a knee, the ball will now be dead. This now includes a player who is fielding a kickball, making it consistent with a receiver catching a pass well on the ground or a ball carrier going to a knee. You will note that this also includes the quarterback or punter fielding a bad snap from center, but it still permits the holder on a field goal or convert attempt to retrieve a bad snap and return to a kneeling position. So whenever a player goes to a knee in possession of the football, the play will now be blown dead. Next rule deals with illegal participation. Players must play the game in the field. This rule change removes an existing exception. You cannot use the out of bounds area to an advantage without penalty. And the exception was you were previously allowed, if a kick was in flight, the returner was able to step out of bounds or step on the sideline and come back in and field that kick. He will no longer be able to do that. That'll be called illegal participation. The next rule modification deals with misleading tactics. This adjustment to the rule gives the quarterback some flexibility once he or she goes under center. Provided the quarterback removes their hand slowly and there is no attempt to draw the defense, it's now okay for the quarterback to do that, to call a different play, signal, or move to a shotgun, or call a timeout. However, the move must be made slowly. This new rule is a brand new rule this year. It's the wedge block. The wedge block is a tactic that everyone wants removed from the game. Its presence encourages wedge busters and subsequent injuries. The good news is that we see very little of this at the amateur level. The formation is penalized. I repeat, the formation is penalized, and it does not require any physical contact, and the rule does not apply on short kickoffs. We're going to have a look at a couple of videos here. So the first one is a wedge block. I want you to have a look at the Edmonton, I believe it's Edmonton. Anyways, have a look at the return team on the left side of the screen. You'll see 3 players form up shoulder to shoulder within 2 yards of each other. Boom. That is a wedge block. And as soon as that formation is made, that's the foul. This is the sideline view of the same play. Now, this second play does not meet the criteria of a wedge block. 3 players do not stand shoulder to shoulder within 2 yards of each other. What you will see is 2 players standing shoulder to shoulder and a third behind them. That does not meet the criteria of a wedge block, and that is not a penalty. The next rule modification deals with blocking downfield. In passing situations where the ball is thrown across the line of scrimmage, the offense cannot block downfield before the pass is caught. This applies to interior linemen and receivers alike. It's a 10-yard penalty and has become more prevalent with teams that run zone reads or run pass options. Okay, so in the first video here, watch the right tackle, number 64. He's going to be part of a double team. He's going to slide off it and go vertical up to the second level and block the linebacker about 5 or 6 yards downfield. There's the pass, which is completed across the line of scrimmage. That block by 64 is illegal. It's an illegal block, lineman downfield.
Before we get to the next slide, let me remind everyone that at no time can you legally hit a player in the head or use the head as a weapon. That rule is not new, but bears repeating and has been in place for decades. This is a list of all the penalties which qualify as unnecessary roughness. An additive penalty of 15 yards and an automatic first down in most instances. Most of these penalties are safety oriented and address special situations where athletes are vulnerable to injury. We're going to spend a few minutes on those which are underlined. There have been significant changes to these ones in particular. Hands to the face. This rule applies to both offense and defense. The situations where brief incidental contact occurs are not to be penalized. It is a penalty when the contact is forceful, prolonged, or the player gains leverage using the head. The first example illustrates brief and incidental contact to the head of number 67, the left tackle. This would not be a penalty. The next 2 examples are penalties, but committed by the defense. Watch the head of the offensive tackle in each case. Everyone's familiar with the horse collar tackle. It's a dangerous way to tackle, and the rule has been refined to reflect that. If the tackler's hand grabs inside the collar of the jersey or shoulder harness, a penalty will automatically be called, just like grabbing the face mask. If the grab is high on the jersey and accompanied by a pulling action, a penalty will also be called. Watch the tackle at the end of the play. You will note the tackler's hand grabs inside the collar of the ball carrier's jersey. This meets the aforementioned criteria and is a penalty.
Okay, there are three criteria to a blindside block. Gone are the days of ear-holing an unsuspecting victim. Player safety must take priority here. And as you can see, there's the three criteria. Basic one is moving towards or parallel to your own dead ball line, and you can't deliver a forcible block. So let's have a look at some video here. The Hamilton receiver meets all the criteria on this. He'll be circled in a second. He's moving towards or parallel to his own dead ball line and delivers a forcible block. That is a blindside block and it's a penalty. Coaches must remember to coach players to block in the direction that their offense is moving to avoid the situation. Now on this one, you're going to see this happening before as it progresses. It's going to be an open field block and a screen pass. You're going to see a player moving toward his own dead ball line and make a block. He'll be coming across the horse logo in a couple of seconds right there, and he's going to make the block about the 40-yard line. This could also be deemed as unnecessary roughness using the defenseless player criteria. Now watch the Calgary slot back at the bottom of the screen. Slot is not only guilty of making a pick, but it's a blindside block. He's moving parallel to his dead ball line and delivers a forcible block. What I must reiterate about the blindside block is that if you're moving towards your own goal line or parallel to, that's a change in the modification in the rule. You can't make that block anymore this year.
The definition of the close line play area was changed this year. The box extends laterally from the tight end position to the opposite tight end position and is 4 yards in depth, 2 yards on each side of the line of scrimmage. A player situated in the box should expect to be contacted from any direction, with one exception that we'll get to in a moment. Here's another look at the close line play area. Tight end to tight end, 2 yards either side of the line of scrimmage at the snap. Now, a block from the rear is illegal everywhere on the field. However, a player may be contacted from behind in this area, provided the block is above the waist. It becomes a penalty if that block from behind is below the waist. Let me repeat that so we're clear. Players in the close line play area may block an opponent in any direction except from behind and below the waist. This rule came about in 2019, but it bears repeating, and it has undergone some refinements. It also requires a bit of explanation. It is illegal to block below the waist anywhere on the field, except in the block below the waist zone. The next slide provides the dimensions of that area. The rule applies to both offensive and defensive players. This clearly has implications implications for the way coaches teach blocking and block destruction. The low block must occur in the zone by a player positioned there at the snap. If a defensive player outside the zone enters the zone after the snap, they may be blocked low. In order for a low block, an offensive player in motion must enter the zone and stop before the ball is snapped. And contact must be above the knee, targeting the thigh. The next several slides will help to illustrate this. The block below the waist zone is the close line play area with expanded depth. It includes normally positioned backfielders, whether the quarterback is under center or in shotgun. The player must be in this zone at the snap to block or be blocked below the waist. Let's look at 3 scenarios. Look at the defensive end on the left side of the screen indicated by the arrow. He's considered in the zone because he is shading the tight end position. Therefore, he can block or be blocked below the waist. The linebackers on the opposite side of the screen are outside the block below the waist zone. They cannot be blocked low by the tight end across from them, nor can they go low. Should the linebacker in the middle of the screen step up into the gap between the tackles before the snap, he would be considered in the zone. This would allow him to block or be blocked below the waist. If he enters the zone after the ball is snapped, he may be blocked low, but only by an offensive player positioned in the zone at the start of the play. And should he remain where he's presently standing, he can only be blocked above the waist. Here you can see the block below the waist zone as established by this formation. The slot back, number 23, is in the zone. Number 88, the end, is not. Had number 23 been in motion and been outside the area and entered the zone, he would have to have stopped prior to the snap for his block to be legal. The player he is blocking is not in the block below the waist zone at the snap. However, he enters that zone and may be blocked low as a result. On kick plays, blocking backs are considered to be in the block below the waist zone, but onside players are not. Watch the action inside the circle on this punt. The block is below the knee, making it illegal. Players must target the thigh area for this to be a legal tactic. In our next clip, the player enters the block below the waist zone, but does not come to a full stop before the ball is snapped. The fact that the player does not come to a complete stop prior to the snap makes this block illegal. And our final clip illustrates a legal low block where contact is clearly made above the knee. While we normally associate blocking with the offense, this rule also applies to the defense. Watch the linebacker take on the lead blocker by going low. Defensive players outside the block below the waist zone at the snap may not block low even if they move into the zone. This low block is illegal because number 33 is not positioned in the zone at the snap, and the block does not occur there either. Watch the Hamilton linebacker cut the pulling tackle. The tactic of blowing up lead blockers by cutting them has to disappear. The lineman was injured as a result of this illegal block. This is a penalty because number 11 was not in the block below the waist zone at the snap, and the block occurred outside of the zone as well.
Our final unnecessary rule, roughness rule modification involves an expanded definition of the crackback block. Essentially, a player cannot come from outside the block below the waist area, identified by the rectangle, and deliver a low or a forceful block on a defender. Those words are new this year, a forcible block on a defender. That area is expanded at the snap and is identified by the yellow lines, 5 yards in advance of the line of scrimmage, all the way back to the offense's dead ball line. To review, a player cannot go low. That is not a rule change. However, they may not deliver a forcible block either if they're coming from the outside. You'll see some similarities to the blindside block rule. It is all determined where the player initially starts and their movement. We'll have a look at a couple of videos and it explains it. Watch the slot back at the bottom of the screen. He starts well outside the block below the waist zone. He moves into the zone and blocks low. This is a crackback block and is an unnecessary roughness penalty. This is just a long clip, fellas. Okay, have a look at the inside receiver, number 87 on the right of the formation. He'll meet all the criteria for a crackback block. He moves from an outside position into the zone and delivers a forcible block. That is now a crackback block penalty. Frequently, as you know, we'll have receivers who will waggle down the line of scrimmage and deliver big blocks on that defensive end or the linebacker who's playing tight. You must recognize now that these are illegal. You cannot blow those players up. Okay, on this play, the player at the bottom of the screen is guilty of unnecessary roughness for two reasons. The block meets the criteria of a crackback block, but also a block from the rear. This is illegal and a 15-yard penalty. Having issues, Don?
We're experiencing a little technical difficulty with the video moving forward here.
Anyways, the circle player goes in and cuts the Hamilton linebacker. And while he delivers a forcible block and also hits him from the rear. So that's what happens on this play.
Okay. We may get to it or we may not. That concludes our overview of rule changes. Thank you very much for your attention. In our remaining time, we'd like to answer as many questions as possible. Please use the chat feature to ask about anything contained in the presentation, or if you just have a general rules inquiry, we'd be happy to entertain those questions. And if we don't get to your question, we'll post our email addresses. They can also be found on the OFOA website, And Marie and I'd be more than happy to answer those for you. Thank you.
And I see we've got a lot of questions, Aaron.
Yes, and you know what? And I appreciate Tom for putting the questions in. So so Tom's got about 4. So I'll start with the first one. So if a player is knocked out of bounds by a block, can he return to the field of play?
Yes. If he goes out of bounds as a result of a block or a wet field or something that wasn't under his control, he can come back on the field of play and take part.
Okay, second question. So in terms of how far can a blocker go downfield on a pass play before it's considered illegal? Is the range 2 yards, 3 yards? What is the the actual yardage marker, or is it?
If he maintains his block from the line of scrimmage, he can go down as far as he wants. Okay. But if he's leaving to go to that second level to make a block, that's going to be illegal. That is illegal. Okay.
I'll add to that sometimes linemen head downfield just looking for somebody. Their presence downfield doesn't make it a penalty, but if they go looking for somebody to block, it becomes a penalty.
So in that instance, as soon as he takes off that double and chips up to the linebacker, as soon as he makes contact with the linebacker that's at depth, at that point, it becomes a penalty. But if the linebacker was walked down to the line of scrimmage and he comes off of his block and he's still maintaining contact with the linebacker that's at the line of scrimmage, as long as he's not downfield initiating a block, then we're good.
That's correct.
And assuming, so if maybe this is a follow-up question for me. If the ball has already gotten off at that point when the reception is made, then he is allowed to then make contact again, correct?
Could you repeat that, please, Aaron?
So quarterback's throwing the ball, but the
Yes.
offensive lineman has made his way downfield, has not initiated contact. The reception has been made. At that point, he is able to make a block.
He's able to block, sure.
Okay, so next question is, so in terms of the clothesline play, and where the tight end is, and the extent, if there is no tight end, in terms of the actual splits, is it a generic split? Is it based on a wide split? If the tight end is there and he's 4 yards out, can we just get some clarification on the distance of the clothesline play with or without a tight end?
Yep, works.
So the formation is defined by where the tight end would normally be. So if the split between the guard and the tackle is a certain distance, we'd expect the split between the tackle and the tight end to be about the same. This rule even includes if you wanted to put, let's say, 8 or 9 players on the line of scrimmage, you could extend the close line play area because it's defined by the ends, the tight end in particular. Okay, but don't get too caught up in distances there. It's what the formation dictates.
Okay.
But if you were to split that end, maybe 6-7 yards outside the tackle, that doesn't extend the box.
No.
The box would be the normal tight end position.
Perfect. Okay, so the next question. So, and Noah's in the clip a little bit, but the question was, can the defensive tackle, can the defense tackle below the waist or cut the blocker or ball carrier? So I guess there's 2 questions here. Can the tackler cut the blocker as they're coming, as in the clip? And then secondly, can the defensive player tackle the ball carrier below the waist? So I guess there's 2 things. Can the tackler cut the blocker first? I'll address that one.
Okay. First of all, it depends on where the defensive player starts. So let's assume if it's a defensive lineman, they're in the box, they're able to cut. All right. They're able to cut a player who's also in the box or who enters the box. So let's say it's a running back who is considered to be in the box. He comes through the line and he's cut. That's perfectly legal because both of them are in the box and the block occurred in the box as well. The situation is, if you think back to the video where the linebacker tried to take on the pulling tackle. The tackle was in the box, the linebacker was not at the snap of the ball. So the linebacker can never go low. Now that's a tactic that small defensive players have been using for years. You know, they blow up the blocker coming around the end, hoping that a teammate can make a tackle. That is now illegal. So you're either in the box to start, and that's where the block has to occur, or you enter the box once the play starts. And then you're fair game, but only by a player who started there as well.
Okay, great. I think that clarifies that. So in going back to the blocking downfield, the coach had asked, is this specifically in a run pass option situation where the quarterback's, has pulled the ball and still has the option to pass to block downfield and that being a penalty? I know run pass option is the, the big thing right now in football. And, we're as coaches flirting with that, are guys really downfield? I know I think you clarified a little bit in terms of when it's a penalty, when the contact is made downfield.
Yep.
But I guess maybe if you can just clarify the situation specifically for the coach.
And unfortunately, on the play you describe, if that quarterback pulls the ball out and throws it across the line of scrimmage and somebody's downfield and is blocking, that's going to be a penalty.
And I guess a similar situation, say the quarterback has scrambled and
right,
has the option to either run or pass, and at the last second has passed, and someone has made contact down the field. Do we treat that as the same situation?
I don't know whether we do or not. I'd have to have a look in the rule book. There used to be a clause in there where if the play broke down, I'm just not up on that. Don?
No, that would still be a penalty because anytime you throw the ball, anytime there's a forward pass, the offense cannot block downfield until the ball is caught. So if the quarterback scrambles and let's say one of his receivers realizes the quarterback's in difficulty and he thinks he's going to run, so he starts blocking. And then all of a sudden the quarterback finds an open receiver, throws the ball, the penalty is on that receiver who was blocking. Can't do that. Not when there's a forward pass on the play. If the quarterback runs, everything's fine.
Okay, great. So that is all. If anybody else has any questions, please feel free to put them in. I want to keep you guys for another couple minutes because I want to talk about a few things if you're okay with that. So I know one of the things that we've talked about a lot lately is officials recruitment. And, there may be coaches in the room, or maybe there's players or parents in the room. Can we just talk about how we can get more officials in the game? And if someone is interested about being an official, maybe they only coach in the spring, but they don't coach in the fall and they'd be interested in being an official. Can you guys talk about what that process looks like or what they need to do or who they need to reach out to?
Sure. I would venture to say that everybody who's tuned into this clinic this evening loves the game of football. When they left as a player, there were a number of options available to them. And a lot of people choose coaching. And there's nothing wrong with that, obviously, but it certainly demands a fair bit of a time commitment. What we're hoping to capture are those people that when they leave the game, they want to stay connected in some capacity and understand that games can't happen without officials. Those games are called scrimmages. And so we would like to attract people that have a passion for the game of football, but we're just asking you to become involved in a slightly different capacity. There are great rewards to it. I must tell you, you need a bit of a thick skin to be good at it and to enjoy it. It's not for everyone, but we would like to target, those people that love the game of football. If you're a parent and you're driving your kid to the game and you're going to be there anyway, why not be part of the game? We've targeted former U Sport athletes when they finish playing, and that would be the ideal candidate. They've got a good knowledge of the game. We think they'd be a quick study for this sort of thing. Our province is broken up into 19 different local associations, and each local association is responsible for training the officials that join their group. And, it takes a couple of years to get reasonably good at it, but we're always looking for officials. I regret to say that most of the officials in the province right now are at the senior end of the continuum. By age, we're looking to attract younger kids. Think of it as a part-time job for some kids that are in high school. They could hold yardsticks, they could get their feet wet by watching and, officiating Pee-wee or Atom football on a weekend morning and that sort of thing. But we would most definitely like to attract more officials to our community. And as I said previously, the rewards are great. There's as much satisfaction and enjoyment officiating a football game as there is in whatever capacity you're involved with, whether it's a parent as a spectator or a former player or a coach.
So,
And
Maria,
I just want to add to that. Sorry, Aaron. Not everybody's going to be a U Sport official or a CFL official, but I'll tell you, some of the most fun I've had officiating football has been on a high school football field. So if you know of anybody, former player, a woman that likes football, we need women officials, and as somebody said earlier on, nothing wrong with doing high school football. You can bloom where you're planted, and you can become a great high school football official. So there's nothing wrong with that, and we need officials.
So Murray, insane. I know we've talked about this, and Don, you had brought this up earlier, that we want to try to find more ways that we can bridge the officials getting into the programs and being not just at the games, but being actively involved earlier. So Murray, is as we go beyond this and we can find a way to get the officials within the communities, is there anything that we can give the coaches or connections that you can provide to the coaches in the group to allow their athletes to start thinking right now about actually being an official? Like what can we do to bridge that connection, I guess?
Well, one thing we can do is we can put individual coaches in touch with the associations in their particular area. There's 19 local associations in the province, and not everybody's in the GTHA. We can put them in touch with those individuals. They can contact us. They can contact myself or Don, and we'll put them in the right direction.
Okay, so I want to encourage everybody to make that connection with Don and with Murray or with your local association, so we can build those bridges with the officials. Provide more opportunities for our athletes to not just think coaching is the only option after we're done, because coaching isn't for everybody. And similarly, we want to provide more options. So we do have two more questions real quick that I want to real quickly touch on. So punt protectors can block below the waist even though the ball is exchanged? ?
Yes, so if you're an up back blocking on a punt, you're permitted to block below the waist because you're considered to be in the block below the waist zone. Onside players are not. Okay.
So the second piece, I can talk on this a little bit. The question was, has there been a discussion about just getting rid of cut blocking since we have other options? And I'll say this from a Football Canada perspective / safety perspective. At the youth ages right now, we are trying to go through a calculated approach through the research to see, what the benefits / risk are of cutting. So that is something that is actively being looked at right now. There's not enough research to say one way or the other whether or not we completely get rid of cutting. There is an argument for smaller kids having a tool in their toolbox to be able to make a block on a bigger athlete, similarly to the discussion that we've had around rugby style tackling or thigh tackling and being able to block safely with an approach of cutting. So, there's two prongs to the argument, but right now Football Canada is actually actively looking at it, specifically in a model in Alberta that actually has two minor organizations that operate, one without cutting, one with cutting. So that is something that has been actively looked at. And I know the officials and the rules committee have talked about this pretty regularly over the past few years. So that is something that is on the horizon. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that.
Aaron, I just offer two comments. The rules committee is not driven by officials. There are all the different players in the game of football contribute to the direction and the evolution of the game. So, when the question arises about blocking below the waist, could the game be better served without it? That comes about through research, that comes about through proposals to the rules committee to do away with that tactic. If people feel passionately that the game's better without it or with it, they need to make a contribution to the rules committee with a proposal of some sort. The other comment I just want to reiterate with coaches, you would assist officials groups with training tremendously if novice officials could get on a football field and practice. And hence the invitation to invite your local officials out to a team practice at some point. I can remember the first time I officiated. I thought I knew everything because I'd played the game of football. I didn't know a thing about officiating. And boy, would it have ever helped if I'd had a few practice reps before stepping on the field for the first time. So that would be a tremendous help to us.
Awesome. So real quick, Murray just put both Dawn and Murray or Murray's contact information in there. We'll give Dawn's contact information as well. If you are interested in officiating, reach out to them. Like they said, we need as many officials as we can. We need to, making sure that we're working with them. And guys, I appreciate you guys so much, being here to talk rules and to help bridge the gap between coaches, officials, and just help grow our game. So thank you so much. Friday night. So I know probably got other things to do. So I appreciate you guys being here.
Aaron,
Thanks
it was,
very much, Aaron.
It was a normal Friday night. We'd be out doing a football game. So what's the difference?
Hey, fair enough. Fair enough. Thanks, guys, so much.
See you guys.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Good night.
All right, so we are gonna move on to the last section on our topic. So this one I'm super excited about, and the guys that are coming up next I know super well. Had many conversations with our next speakers come from Saskatchewan and specifically Saskatoon. I'm gonna joke with them. One of the things that I've said specifically to some of these guys is, hey, I'm sick of getting my butt kicked by Saskatchewan. So that's going to be something that's on the docket for us here in Ontario. But right now we're all friends, and I appreciate that both Brian and Corey are here to share some knowledge about growing grassroots football and driving football development, specifically with the Football Canada mobile app, but also some best practices from Saskatchewan and the great programming that they do. So just real quick to introduce Corey is the co-founder of Athlete Era, the software company providing the Football Canada mobile app. Corey played 5 years post-secondary football with the Saskatoon Hilltops and University of Saskatchewan Huskies. After completing his master's degree in kinesiology and exercise science, he went on to found Athlete Era in 2017. The company is now working with 20 sport governing bodies around the world to help provide improved digital solutions to develop and support over 150,000 volunteer coaches. That includes both Football Canada and USA Football. Secondly, Brian is the founder and executive director of Saskatoon Minor Football, one of the most innovative and successful youth organization football groups in the country. Brian had an extensive football career that included time with the Saskatoon Hilltops, University of Saskatchewan Huskies, Saskatchewan Roughriders, and Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Following his football career, Brian completed his Master's of Education degree and founded Saskatoon Minor Football in 2010 based on the research principles of age-appropriate youth sport. SMF now delivers a variety of contact and non-contact football programs to over 4,000 youth every year. SMF was also one of the first organizations in North America to implement youth 6 versus 6 tackle football in 2010. And I'm jealous because they get to start playing football again next week. And guys, thank you so much for jumping on and talking football. And we've had so many conversations in the past, and I'm so excited about FC Mobile and what it's going to provide for our membership and the growth of the sport. And I'm just excited to hear what you guys have to say and be able to share it. So the floor is yours, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks for the intro. I know, Brian, I'm glad you could jump on. Been running around like crazy. Got the green light to start games next week. So it's been hectic.
Yeah, no, it's been a nuts week. I mean, I know we're all looking forward to getting back to football. They gave us the green light on Tuesday. So this is the first time I've been home since midnight this week, and I didn't get everything done I was supposed to today, but I look forward to seeing you guys all back. And like Aaron said, I guess our motto in Saskatchewan is we want to teach you everything we know, so it forces us to be better. So we'll teach everything we know about this today, and it'll force us to be better when we meet Ontario on the field again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I just appreciate everybody having us out. So as Aaron mentioned there, my name's Corey with Athlete Era. So today we're going to be going over some of the stuff that we've done here with Football Canada, specifically as it pertains to the Football Canada mobile app. And some of you may have heard about the resource, you may not have, you may have tried it, but we want to introduce everybody to the tool and give you a little bit of an overview of what it's all about. And then Brian can Brian is here to speak a little bit to some of the success they've had. We've worked quite closely with Saskatoon Minor Football in developing the tool. They've been a really major champion of it. So I wanted Brian to share some of his insights. So we will get rolling on things. So, to introduce the app and a little bit of what it's all about, it was really designed to be a comprehensive digital support tool for both new and experienced coaches at the grassroots level. So, we really define that grassroots level, that 5 to 12, that 5 to 12 age category. And, our major emphasis in there and what we want to bring to it is, put an emphasis on skill development. I know a lot of times in football, especially, we kind of see this balance in the back and forth between skill development and schemes and strategy, and really be able to help provide a tool to be able to, support new and experienced and coaches with really helping kids develop strong skill fundamentals for the game. And then also, when it comes to practice planning and delivery, we think that there's a lot of ways that digital technology can be used to streamline that process. kind of store what you're working on, make practice planning more efficient and make it more collaborative in terms of how you share information with coaches and with others on your team. And then we also have a little bit in there in terms of some basic team management functionality. If you have used some of those apps, they do have some tools that are quite useful for coaches. So we got a little bit on that as well. And really the reason that we brought the resource out and have developed the software platform to do this kind of thing in terms of what we think it can replace, it's maybe not being done super efficiently right now, because at the grassroots level, people are volunteers and time is everything. So, we know the more time we can save everybody, the more likely they are to volunteer, stay engaged in our programs, and, the more time they can spend actually coaching, because that's what everybody enjoys to do so much. So, we really want to help get away from this searching online, looking in a whole bunch of different places. And I spend, an hour at night before practice the next day going through like websites and links, and some links work, some don't. I don't know where to find what. And it ends up being a quite prolonged experience until you actually find something that you want. The second one, a little bit more ambitious. I think we'll get there eventually, but we, truly think that a lot of practice planning can be done completely digitally, and start getting a little bit away from, printed resources and printed practice plans. Mobile phones, smartphones are getting better than they've ever been. There's a lot that you can do with them nowadays. We're getting things like smartwatches coming out, and, tablet devices, all these sorts of things. We really think it's the future. And then another thing as well, some of you, depending on what age level you coach at, what programs you're involved with, you might set up some sort of like a shared resource folder on, Google Drive or Dropbox, just to share coaching ideas with your staff. We think there's a lot we can do to improve upon that as well. And really the driving focus in terms of how we think this tool can support the growth of football at the grassroots level. And I know Brian will touch on this quite a bit as well. Really trying to lower that barrier of entry for new parents wanting to get involved in coaching, because we know for a lot of them, grassroots is kind of the entry point before they might progress their way up to high school or post-secondary, or what have you. And then also kind of with the, growing popularity of flag football teams are smaller, meaning there is a lot more teams and you need a lot more coaches. So, we're starting to have to rely quite a bit more on just parent volunteers to coach, especially in the flag football space. So, how can we make it as simple as possible for that person to step up and be, a confident coach that can develop the skills within all their players and leave them with a good experience. And a big thing that we're super passionate about, and I am myself, and we do a lot of work, like with Football Canada as well as USA Football on the football development model. I don't know if anybody has looked into that, but I would encourage you to look up the football development model. They're doing some great stuff as well, but it's really making sure practice planning is age appropriate. I can speak to it myself, coaching or playing at the university level, and then going back and coaching, 8 and 9-year-olds in Brian's league. It's definitely, it's very different when you're dealing with kids at that age for a number of reasons. And I think the more we can do, to help support individuals and find these concepts of, how can we make the drills that we're doing at that age group, more game-based, so they're more entertaining for the kids. They feel less like exercise, and it can be really a more enjoyable experience for them. I think can go a really long way in giving everybody a positive experience in the sport of football. And then, the other big thing too is just providing those that are administrators of local clubs or local leagues, kind of with a single comprehensive tool. So they're not, as stressed out and feeling like they have to pull a bunch of different things together from different places, just to be able to support, you know, all the coaches and the programs within their leagues. And, you know, the better on-field experience ends up for everybody. You know, the more kids are going to come back to your program. And then I think that also can be said for coaches. You know, the more administrators provide in terms of coaching support, so that, you know, coaching is a great experience for the parents and those in your communities that volunteer, you know, the more that they're going to enjoy and keep doing it as well. So to touch on some of the features and what the app actually does, you know, you can go and download it for free, and I'll get to where you can do that before Brian jumps in here. There's a free version. And then if you're a member of Ontario Football Alliance, we basically have a credit system where you can upgrade to the full version of the app for free. You know, it comes loaded with a bunch of pre-populated content. So, you know, we have drill libraries in there. We have practice plan libraries. This summer, we're going to be launching the skill progression libraries as well. So there's a lot of, you know, resources that are already in there. So if you are brand new, you know, you can jump right in, and it breaks everything down in a very high level of detail. So, you know, even if you are new, you can understand stuff quite quickly. And then because the content library is continually expanding, you know, we have a bunch of filter options in there as well. So you can filter content out by, you know, what age group you're coaching, if it's flag, tackle, what type of program it is, you know, other parameters like categories of drills, depending on what skills you might want to work on, all those sorts of things to just make it efficient to find what you need. And then something we've just started getting into a little bit more this year is, you know, you can customize some of that content as well. So if you are a little bit more experienced, like you can build out your own practice plans in the app, you know, add some of your own drills, embed them into the plans, do that all sort of stuff. So it gives, you know, those more experienced coaches an added layer of customization. And then the big thing as well is, you know, like when you set up your account on the app, others on your team can join. And basically that allows you to share all the content that you find in the app, that you've built in the app with everybody on your team, whether that be, you know, the rest of your coaching staff, or at the older age group, it might be players, or, you know, lots of ways that you can roll with that. I skipped on there. And then a couple of the other tools. So as I mentioned, we do have some, you know, team management capacities. The reason being that, you know, we talk to a lot of coaches, and, you know, some of them may be using your team snaps or some of those other tools. And the more they could use one app, that would be preferable to two. You know, and we found kind of the primary value in those tools is really group messaging and scheduling. So we have the ability to do both in Football Canada Mobile as well, you know, with the main added value that everything's integrated with the content. So in your coaches group chat, you can put your practice plan right in there. Coaches can talk about it. You can go tweak a drill. You know, here's what we're doing, final practice plan, put it on your schedule. So there's lots of ways, you know, you can take it. And then, you know, we have basic roster information. So as people join up to your team, you can basically keep track of everybody's info and who's on there. So the primary place where you can go learn more about the tool and what it does is footballcanadamobile.com. So we do have a dedicated website to the app, you know, walks you through the features, how everything works, how to set up a team, where to download it. And then we also have a variety of support resources there as well. So, you know, you can refer back to there if you're looking for more information, or you want to download and, you know, give the app a try. And then also just added to the support section, it's still in early stages, but we do have a complimentary web tool to this as well. Basically, the main thing to mention is the web version was more so intended for clubs or associations or leagues. So essentially to be used by a group of coaches. And what it allows you to do is actually manage some of your own content that can then be fed into the mobile app content libraries. But of course, it's not available for everybody across Canada. It's only available to teams and coaches that are within your specific club. But if you are interested in exploring that a little bit, like I said, that would be more along the lines if maybe your organization is trying to set up some sort of shared Google Drive folder or something like that, to share resources and content. It can be done quite a bit more efficiently on our web portal there. So if you go into the support section of the website, you can register there to get an account set up, and we put that together for you. So that's a general overview of the app. And once Brian speaks to, some of the stuff that they've gone through at SMF, we will open the floor for questions. So similar to the last session, if you want to post questions in the chat group, then, we'll go through them. So Brian, I will turn it over to you.
Awesome. Yeah. Keep working the slides there, Corey. But yeah, we've been using this app and working with Athlete Era since 2018. So I guess we're going into our 7th season working with them, having lost last spring, but salvaging last fall. And it's been a wonderful app, and just for a variety of reasons, and certainly depending on what level you're coaching, I can kind of speak to using it at the very base grassroots level. This is a picture of our Tykes on Spikes program right here, which is 3 to 6 year olds. And what we do is we take all of our curricular programming. I know Corey talked a little bit about the web portal and how organizations can use it from an administration standpoint. But what we've done is we've digitized our entire curriculum, put it in here. So now when we recruit new coaches to operate, say, our Tykes on Spikes program, which would fall into the Football Canada First Down program, they can pick it up. They can understand what the drills are, what the coaching points are in those drills, what the cues are, different variations on how to adapt those. And it really gives them the efficacy to be a really good coach, maybe with little experience. And then as we build on that experience, as we all know, we become much better at it. So Corey, you can head to that next slide there. So in terms of resource preference, I know we've all been there. You're at a coach's clinic for a reason. You want to learn more. But having surveyed our entire membership, they like it when the resources are all in one place and they're easy to sort. Like Corey said, there's a filter option on there to sort by age, type of game, which does include 5-on-5 flag, 6-a-side, the first down program, 9-a-side, 12-a-side, all those sorts of things. So there's different resources, and obviously fundamental drills, they would fall into many of those different categories. So it certainly narrows down, because I know we've all been there where we attend the coaches clinics and we get the 3-inch binder that's full of lots of good resources. But I mean, how often do we pull it off the shelf after we've completed our training session of the thing? There is some good resources in there. Maybe every once in a while we moan up on some of that stuff. But what we found is just with the busyness of everyone's life, you like to get into that idea of micro learning, where you're learning little bits at a time and as you go. I mean, if any of us watch Netflix or PVR programs on TV, it's because we don't want to waste our time with those commercials, or we want to get to what we want to right now. This kind of offers the same option for us. In terms of that coaching efficacy point, I've already talked about a little bit. This gave our coaches the confidence, and to go with that next point there in coaching increase, in terms of raising the floor of our game and raising the floor of our program. I mean, we're all elite driven in many cases. We want to be the best of the best. We want to send kids to the NFL, CFL, national teams, provincial teams. We want to win those championships, that sort of stuff. And that's great. But in terms of a long-term approach to how we're developing our athletes, if we can raise that floor and we can develop those fundamental skills, those good habits at younger ages, it's gonna raise the level of quality for everybody. So and with that being said, if you lower the barrier of entrance for coaches to get in and feel like they've done a good job, they're going to come back. And I'll tell you, hey, we got the green light on Tuesday this week. We had 1,200 kids signed up to play flag football, 120 teams that we were trying to find coaches for. And today I have coaches for every single team. And a lot of it is, hey, we have this resource for you. Like, no experience needed. You're a passionate kid that wants to, or parent that wants to see your kid play football this year. No problem. We will train you along the way. We'll get you in certification clinics and stuff like that. And once we get them in the sport, it's easy to get them to do their intro to comp, their comp dev, their, positional coordinator, head coaching training and stuff like that. But this allows that barrier of entry to go, hey, football's all right. This is a pretty good deal. And then the program quality impact, I've kind of hit on that quite a bit. Empowering our parents to learn skills at home, to work with their kids on maybe a sport they're less familiar with, to go out and buy a ball and go play with their kid, and then find some neat innovative drills because they're part of a team. And maybe, in our Tykes on Spikes program, that 3 to 6 year old program, we assign homework each week. So we say, hey, try this drill, try this drill. In terms of how we can implement this, and we've done this, practice plan review. And this is something you can do from the lowest level. Obviously, with all of our coaches, we put curricular specific practice plans that relate to our program. So I've got our 6-a-side curriculum sample practice plans for every week of the season in there for the coaches. They can go in there, they can adapt them, they can customize them, they can swap out drills and do that sort of stuff. But all of their coaches come. And I'll tell you this, as a high school coach, sometimes we don't get all the elite coaches we'd like on our team, but you get that young, passionate kid, you start feeding them some drills that you want them to do, and they start to understand the cues and the fundamentals and that sort of stuff. It raises the bar for that position group. So you can start to trust and empower your coaches that much more because you've given them, a quality place to have as a position. Now with elite level programs, like when we run provincial teams or our all-star teams or our North Sask Academy that we're in right now, we try and develop the practice plans and the drills prior to practice so our kids can see them. So if we got a kid coming in from Meadow Lake, which is 3 hours away from Saskatoon here, maybe their coaches aren't as familiar with the language or the terminology or anything like that. They can familiarize themselves with the drills as they get going. And that kind of goes with the idea of this flipped practice. We're always trying to be more efficient as coaches. So we've seen it with film. Now that film became more accessible to us at lower and lower levels, now we have an opportunity to review practice or review games more efficiently than talking about it on the practice field. Same thing. Why do we spend all this time wasting our breath teaching drills and explaining how this drill is done when our kids could do this on their phones at lunch prior to coming to high school practice or with their parents at home saying, hey, here's some drills that you're going to be doing at practice today. Maybe try some of them at home, or here's some fundamental, requisites we'd like you to come into the season with. Do this over the course of the summer. Now you've set yourself ahead way more so you can spend more time. We as coaches love working on systems and maybe less on fundamentals sometimes because we really believe in those playbooks and those X's and O's. Well, this allows us to make sure that those fundamentals get worked on maybe enough so that we can have that extra time to spend on systems and that sort of stuff and have those requisite skills to go in there. In terms of a coach's cheat sheet, whether you're really experienced or not, you can quickly during a water break or something, pop your phone out and this is the criticism we get, the odd grandpa here and there. My kid's coach was on his phone every day. Yeah, the playbooks and the practice plans and all that stuff's in the phone, grandpa. So it's not the worst thing. But one of the things, you flip out your phone and you go, oh yeah, I got to remember that cue, stay low, move your feet, step this way, that sort of stuff. It's a good refresher, a real short micro learning chance for us to get better. And then player leadership and building, allow your players to share them with each other. One of the things we did, with the COVID outbreak here is we had virtual spring camp with our players where they were allowed to get into certain numbers of groups of players, sometimes positional stuff. So, their peer groups would still get together, go out and do individual skills. And then the captains of those groups would lead those skills. And we knew that there were these drills that we were assigning them that they could go out and do. So again, it empowers those players. And then once they feel empowered, it's easier to hook them to come coach when we need them later on. So
awesome.
yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, we kind of want to open it up to any questions that you had, and we can take this from the grassroots level all the way up to the university and CJFL level if you want.
So guys, so a couple questions that we have. Brian, I'd like you to be able to talk a little bit about some of the innovative stuff that you've done with SMF and how having this tool, you know, especially so guys who have maybe played 12-a-side their whole life, right? And they jump into coaching and all of a sudden we're doing 6-a-side or we're doing flag, and how even for people who, you know, have been football people their whole lives, but, you know, we talked about it earlier, coaching, and Corey said it, coaching 8, 9, 10-year-olds. How does having, you know, that tool with the changes that we're trying to make to the game assisted you in making those changes?
I think part of it, I mean, everything that we've tried to guide our practice on in SMF has been driven by the long-term athlete development model of Football Canada. And I always love looking at best practice. So the FDM of USA Football's got some pretty cool stuff now too. But answering that question, why are we doing this and who are we doing it for? And both those answers are usually the players, right? How do we give those players the best experience possible? And part of it is like, how well are we equipping our coaches to put those players in a place of success? Because ultimately that's a successful coach. We put our players in a position to be successful, and hopefully, you know, they have the opportunity to act in that. With that being said, kind of laying out a roadmap and using the app to do that, in the sense of like, here's weekly practice plans that we give as recommendations or suggestions so that we know that certain fundamentals are being hit on at specific age groups, that we're looking at those windows of trainability of when it's, you know, optimal time to develop speed or strength or things like that. And we're curtailing our practice plans to reflect that volume and intensity, which, I mean, we don't have experts in physiology and stuff like that, you know, to volunteer to coach all the time. But if we can, you know, gradually get them there with, here's some really good practice plans that, you know, would kind of help you along the way. Because I know we've all seen it before. Oftentimes the young coach that's working with a lot of people coaches the way they were coached. And we've seen this game evolve so much over the last 2-3 decades here that we can't coach the old school way anymore. We need to look at new and innovative ways of best practice. I don't know. I hope that answers some of your question, Aaron.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And, you know, so in talking about innovation and how important technology is, Corey, can you maybe just lay out a roadmap of, you know, where the app started and then the future of what the application is going to look like over the next few years, and what we hope to do with it?
Yeah, I mean, where it initially started was, you know, I don't know if anybody used it, but it, you know, it initially was called AQ Coach, and then we kind of transitioned, you know, to branding the mobile app under our organization partners. And, you know, the initial intent for that was really for the volunteer that had very little experience coaching at all. It was really like, you know, just kind of here's the recipe. You know, here's the recipe for what you need. And I think now we're starting to expand it a little bit. The analogy I like is, you know, a guy we work with quite a bit, his name's Dr. Dean Creelars, and he kind of says, you know, there's you have your cooks and then you have your chefs. You know, your cooks are the ones that are kind of brand new. I just want a recipe, want to be able to follow along and do a good job. And, you know, the chefs are then the more experienced coaches. So, you know, it's kind of progressed to that, being like, how can we support that chef with being like, hey, here's some tools, but like, you have the knowledge, you have the experience. How can we, you know, better support you to take your coaching to new heights? And I think that's kind of the area that we're just starting to get into a little bit right now, in terms of, you know, like, again, still keeping that focus really on kind of the grassroots and the high school level, but, you know, how can we help people customize content more? Like, once you're at that high school level, like, what does it look like when players are actually, you know, getting involved in some of this stuff? And I think, you know, going forward, some of the initiatives that we want to work on bringing into the mobile app is more of this concept of, you know, micro micro learning in a little bit more of a formalized approach. So, you know, in the off season, like, hey, you're in the dentist office, like waiting to get a filling, like pull out the app, like here's a 5-minute module on, you know, like receiver positional work, like go through that, have some interactive video, like earn a badge. Like now you've done that, and you can basically build that up over time in the off season. So we really, you know, want to start expanding into some of that stuff kind of once we get, you know, some of those practical resources done. It's kind of, you know, how can we expand it to be a little bit more of a continuing education tool for coaches as well.
So Brian, you had mentioned your flag numbers, right? Like you got 1,200 kids registered for a flag program in Saskatoon and Saskatchewan. Can you just talk about how you've built a program in SMF to drive that much interaction from grassroots all the way to high performance, and maybe just shed some light on some best practices that, you know, that even if it was 1 to 3, I know we could probably talk all night about it, but you know, a couple things that people could take away that say, hey, you know, I'll take this back to my organization because this is going to help me become the next SMF.
Answer that question. Why again? Why are we doing this? If it's for the players, then you're on the right track immediately, right? So how can you provide the best experience to that players? Understand that football is a late developing game. We don't need to be great until we're maybe 17 or 18 years old, when, you know, scholarships, the opportunities to play post-secondary provincial teams, whether that's, you know, Olympics in 7 years, hopefully, for flag. You know, those are the reasons. So if you're more worried about just recruiting and retention rather than necessarily the elitism of your sport, and that retention is all about give these kids a great experience, make them fall in love with the game. We don't keep score and standings until our kids are U16. It's about development. It's about let them try different positions, especially pre-puberty. You know, we don't want a kid who's big to be pigeonholed into being an offensive or defensive lineman, and then all of a sudden he hits his growth spurt, leans out, and has no idea how to catch or run a route or you handle the ball or any of that sort of thing. So multi-positional development, that idea of skill generalization over specialization pre-puberty, is something that we've had a lot of success with. And man, I can't say enough. And as a motivated, excited football person, I have to rein myself in at times, but less is more. Encourage kids to go play soccer and baseball and lacrosse. And like our flag football season, we play 1 game a week. It's on Saturdays. Parents know that. It costs about $120 for a full season. They get 2 jerseys to keep, and usually some other gift. This year it's buffs that they can wear as a mask for certain reasons, obviously. But give them a great experience, provide a great value, but we don't have to burn them out too early. We don't have to have multiple championships too young. Just give them a great experience, make them love the game, and keep them hungry and coming back.
I love the way you put that. And you can definitely tell that what you guys are doing in Saskatchewan are giving fun experience for kids, because, you know, your numbers show it. And the last thing I want to touch on real quick is, Corey, one of the things that I'm a big proponent on is the idea of crowdsourcing, and the idea that, you know, the more we can get the community to work and build a resource, the more we're going to get out of it. And I think one of the most unique things about the app, or the power of this app, is the idea that we can, as a community, collectively build the content that lives within the mobile app. Can you talk a little bit about the value that adds, and the value that individual coaches and programs can add to the app?
Yeah, so that's starting to come in through that web portal piece. So, you know, like I said, I think it's still in its early stages. It's definitely usable for associations, but, you know, I would say really what we're trying to balance is how can we crowdsource the development of content without sacrificing you know, quality and consistency, because really what we see right now is you have 2 ends of the spectrum, right? It's like if it's just completely open source on something like YouTube or, you know, wherever, you don't know, you don't know where this came from. You don't know, is this good? Like, is this actually aligned with age appropriate coaching standards? Like, you don't know any of that. Right. But then a lot of times, you know, and I think, you know, some of the provincial associations, especially, like, you can be in a challenging spot, right? Where it's like, you only have so many resources, and, you know, for an organization such as yourself to try and, you know, develop content that's going to work best for everybody in every space, like, it's never going to happen. So, you know, basically what we're doing through that web portal is allowing people to come in there and start building stuff, but also, you know, having some guided structure in terms of how organizations put that content together. And then basically, you know, like, the goal long term is to implement a little bit of a content reviewal process where it's starting to create this, like, more of a loop in terms of a content production, where it's kind of like, hey, like the best stuff should come from, you know, the coaches at the grassroots level that are doing a great job, and their players are getting better, and they're having fun, and they're coming back. And then, you know, like what are the things that those people are doing and what's working well? And then, you know, how do we share that with organizations such as Ontario Football Alliance or Football Canada, and be like, hey, this is great stuff. Like, it's, you know, this is where it fits in to our long-term athlete development model, you know, approve it. And now it can be shared through the broader content libraries. And of course, you know, give recognition to those coaches who have developed that stuff. And I know Brian has kind of brought up some of that stuff. It's cool because a lot of times, right, you might not, if you're a great grassroots coach, like, you might not necessarily have the ability to get recognized on, you know, a national scale. A lot of times that only comes from, you know, being involved with a top level or top tier post-secondary program or those sorts of things, where, you know, that's kind of where our wheels are turning a little bit. We're like, we think that's a cool concept to be able to help, you know, those grassroots coaches that are doing an exceptional job through some of the creation of content, kind of get recognized for how well they're doing things at a national level.
So 2 quick questions before I let you guys go. First one for Corey is there any plan for video analysis?
Not, I mean, in terms of, like, game film breakdown.
It's a good question. I mean,
yes,
he says yes. Joel
yeah,
says
not really for game film breakdown. I mean, you know, there's your huddles. I know huddles got quite expensive. And because of that, you know, there's a bunch of other tools that are coming into the space right now to fill that. So, you know, we're not planning to get into, like, the game film analysis. Like, I think, you know, things like skill development breakdown, analysis from that standpoint, like at an individual level, is something we could possibly look into in the future. But you know, I think we kind of view that as a little bit more of like a high performance older program, older age groups type of tool. So, you know, not really intending to get in that space.
Yeah. And then Brian, real quick, Coach Rob was wondering, so for your flag, you said you practice once a week. Do the coaches make their own practice plan, or is this something that you curate for them through the app?
No, we do curated practice plans for each age group. So we've got U8, U10, U12, U14. We are trying to get into some U16, U18 leagues, but we haven't yet. But yeah, we curate age-specific practice plans. Usually just one per week over the course of 8 to 10 weeks. So we usually have 10 practice plans for them to choose from, and then we theme each one of them so that they're focused on a particular theme. But I think the greatest practice plans are the ones you deviate from. So we encourage our coaches to understand the needs of their team and the uniquenesses and maybe what drills might work better with their groups. So we kind of, give them the blueprint, but allow them to create the best fit for their team. We don't necessarily mandate that they have to follow it. It's just probably a good idea to start there anyways.
It's a good starting point for the coaches, and then they can just modify as they see fit, which is great. Yeah. So guys, I want to say thank you so much for being a part of tonight and giving everybody a glimpse into the Football Canada mobile app and what it can provide. And Brian, being able to get us a glimpse of, what you guys do at SMF and the successes that you've had, and hopefully we can learn some things to take back to our programs. And I know you guys got a ton of work, especially Brian, because you got to start football on Monday. So I'll let you get to it. I'm sure your twins are hoping that dad's going to be around. So they'll probably wake up in the middle of the night anyway, so you'll be able to see them. So guys, thank you so much. Appreciate you. And, please make sure everybody gets a chance to check out the Football Canada mobile app and reach out to those guys if you have any questions.
Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having us.
All right, last thing on our list for tonight before we wrap up the Friday edition, we are going to do one more draw. But before we do that, and Daniel pops that up so we can do it, I do want to say thanks to all the speakers that we had tonight. Everybody was amazing. To be able to talk about building a program and culture and being able to create a winning mindset and to talk about the rules and return to play. I think it's a great starting point for us to lead into Saturday and Sunday. Tomorrow we'll be focused on offensive skills and systems. We have a wide variety of OUA coaches from the variety of schools. And before we jump out into the draw, I just did want to be able to give the audience a quick snippet that NFL Canada is planning their first annual coaching clinic on Monday, June 28th. The clinic will be geared towards Canadian youth football coaches across the country. There'll be many great speakers appearing, such as Andre Patterson of the Minnesota Vikings and Deuce Staley of the Detroit Lions. It'll be hosted by Canada's own Kate Biernes. So we encourage everybody to follow along to both our social media and to NFL Canada's for more information on that clinic. So another great free opportunity for people to be able to be engaged and to hear great football stories. So we have one more prize to give away from Riddell Sports. So we're going to go ahead and spin that wheel one more time and see who walks away with the Riddell Combine pads. As you can see the Power JPX Combine pads. So spin that wheel one last time. All right, and Sean Deisman, congratulations. Hopefully those pads go to good use. Tomorrow we are starting at 11 a.m. Eastern. Hopefully we see everybody tomorrow, and have a great night. We appreciate everybody for coming out. Thank you so much.